Regular Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for a moment of silence. We have two holidays coming up. One is Veterans Day and one is Thanksgiving. For the past 116 days, I know most of the folks that are my colleagues here have been worried about a lot of different things like the budget. There seems to be a whole lot wrong going on in the world right now. And it's hard to be thankful for things. But we have Veterans Day. And Veterans Day talks about heroes and worships and honors heroes. Heroes that have the ability to put all their personal concerns aside and offer supreme sacrifice, or be willing to offer the supreme sacrifice for the concept of the United States of America. And when things are tough, you're supposed to look at your heroes. And these are heroes that you need to remember. I think that's why Veterans Day comes before Thanksgiving. But we have different kinds of heroes too. And they bear their own challenges and they make their own sacrifices. And some of those heroes are local. And that's Kelly Fisher and her family. Kelly lost a son. And it's tough because I think of my two sons. And I can't imagine the pain of losing a child because parents aren't supposed to outlive their children. But taking the sadness and the loss and turning it into something positive is something heroic. Kelly and her family started Alex's Army. And she's bringing the outreach to our kids here in school so that stuff that happened to her husband, to her son, never happens again. So this Thanksgiving, we have heroes we can look to. Those that wore the uniform, and those like Kelly Fisher and her family. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. In case of a fire or an emergency, the emergency exits are located to the rear chamber, also down to the left and out to the parking lot and to my right. Kathy, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Venier?
Here.
Mrs. Riley?
Here.
Mrs. Ungary?
Here.
Mr. Cruzel?
Here.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mr. Neville?
Here.
Mrs. Thurston? Mr. Grady?
For the last time, yes.
Chairman Serrard?
Here. I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and make an addition to board guests and have Ms. Fisher from Alex's Army added just before the Enfield legislators under item 6.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Very good. Board guests, Kelly?
Mrs. Fisher, why don't you come up and join us, please?
I'm with her as a friend.
Always welcome. We're all wearing the uniform of Alex's Army here.
Yeah.
So
Mine is at
Thank
home.
you.
If I would have known, I would have brought it.
Ms.
It's
LeBlanc?
amazing, the support that the community and the Board of Ed has shown our family. It's just amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, we think it's necessary to do that. Anybody who can stand up, we don't all understand where you've been, but I think all of us that have children have a glimmer, as Mr. Serrard said in the invocation. But I think what we wanted to do is recognize what you're doing, but recognize Alex, and the goodness that's going to come out of the work that you're doing. He's remembered. He's part of this community still, and through your efforts, he's making a difference. And so, if you can, and we didn't give you any notice, so we
No.
apologize here. But if you could just tell us what you've been doing and what the purpose is. We know, but for the audience that we have here, if you could just let them know.
Okay. So, September 30th, 2016, worst day of our lives. Alex's friend from 4th grade gave him Oxycontin and it was laced with fentanyl. and he passed away from that. Nothing happened to the kid. He's scot-free. So instead of channeling anger to that kid, we're trying to channel education and awareness to other families, just to help anybody else. If we help one person, we'll be happy. So what we have done, we've started Alex's Army. We want to get into the school system and talk to the kids. My daughter will actually talk to the children. When we talk to adults, it's going to be anybody's child, because you can all relate to anybody's child better than Alex's Army, and kids can't relate to anybody's child. So what we're doing, we have a mock bedroom that we set up, and we did it at the 4th of July. We did it at Alex's event in August. We did it at the Fort Town Fair with an overwhelming response that people just need it, loved it. We have around 60 different places that kids would potentially hide drugs and or alcohol. It's an awakening to parents that, and we're not saying go in the kids' room, do a search and seizure. We're just saying be aware of what's going on in your house. This could potentially happen in your home. Something as simple as the remote control can hide your drugs. Anywhere there's batteries, just really simple places to hide it. We also have a marijuana goggles that shows kids, they always think, oh, I can drive better when I'm high. Well, you really can't. You really can't. So we want to show the kids you really can't. We have alcohol, beer goggles, that we have a go-kart, and they ride the go-kart around cones to see you really can't drive drunk either, and you shouldn't drive drunk. So we're just trying to make awareness and educate. That's really what we want to do. We don't ever want another family to have to go through what we're going through. There's such an epidemic right now, not just in Connecticut, everywhere. Some towns don't think they have a problem. They do. So we are trying to bring our mock bedroom to all these towns. There's also a place, it's called Hidden in Plain Sight, that does it. They charge around $800 to go and bring their bedroom to these towns. We're doing it for free. We just want people to know that this is happening. The more parents know, the better off, they are.
The more all of us know, the better off we are. And that's why a few meetings ago we decided, once we heard about this, we decided to join the Army, okay, and come to a meeting where we could invite you here and have you, be recognized for what you're doing. But also, I think, I speak for all of us, if there's anything we can do to support you,
Thank
okay,
you.
since we all have uniforms now, and we can help you out, and please,
We
feel
just
free.
want to get into the schools. I don't know if we could set something up for the teachers even to show them, we have a backpack also that hides all kinds of drugs. Backpack is a kid's best friend. So if, we would show that to teachers and just make them aware.
With the chair's permission, we'll ask our superintendent to maybe be able to set up a time and meet and talk about what's possible.
We already did.
Geez, I love it when you're so ahead of us, Chris. That's great. But
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tina.
Kelly, I just wanted to say, I think we had met a number of years ago when I moved onto my street because I had the bright pink door, maybe at a Pampered Chef party, then just kind of intermingled as acquaintances between HB Stowe and just different things going on. But when I had found out what happened, it just resonated deeply because I know how much you love your family. And for those people that don't like Facebook, you can become connected with somebody and see how much they adore their family. And I admire everything that you're doing. And, I think I've said this to you before. I'm sure you don't always feel strong, but in our eyes, you are truly strong and a hero. And for me, I take this very seriously because I have kids that are teenagers, but knowing that a parent started this because they've gone through it, is an important message to send, because it makes people realize that it could happen to anyone. You don't think it's going to happen to you, but it can. It could happen to any one of us. So I'm very proud to have known you, even if it has been just as an acquaintance, because I think you've done a wonderful job. And I believe in signs, and I believe in angels, and I believe that he's here.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Lori.
Kelly, I just wanted to tell you how very sorry I am that you've had to go through this experience. It's every parent's nightmare. And I've known you for over 30 years, and I know the big heart that you have, and you don't do anything halfway. And I'm sorry for your loss. And thank you for educating parents. It's huge. Years ago, people were afraid to even talk about it. And so now you're just shining the spotlight and really just letting all the parents know what to look for, the signs and all that. So I just really want to thank you for doing that. I
Thank
admire
you.
you.
Mrs. Fisher, thank you for coming out tonight. You're a very courageous person, and I look up to you for what you're doing.
Thank
I admire you
so
for what you're
much.
doing. And if there's anything that any of us can, please don't hesitate to ask.
That's all you know that know me. I will always ask.
You're not shy, I know.
She's not.
My mouth will open.
So,
I appreciate all the support from everybody. Thank you. I have such an amazing town and support system in this town. It's incredible. I couldn't ask for better people.
We can't either. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
thank you. Next on the agenda is our Enfield Legislative Delegation, the Honorable Ms. Hall, Mr. Stokes, and Mr. Kissel. Come on up.
Carol knows it better than me. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. I wish the governor had come along with you, but apparently he's hiding. So, what can you tell us?
What do you
You want to start?
Sure. It's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot. It's a heck of a lot better than what you were looking at. I'm guessing that my House colleagues, who we work very well together, have similar figures, but just with ECS, because I don't have finalized runs on other things. But my understanding is that under the governor, you would have been down $18,580,000 and 257. The run that I had is that with the budget agreement that we have right now, your ECS for this fiscal year will be down, but it'll be down just $1,429,251 as based on fiscal year 17. And then in fiscal year 19, it's going to go up $169,580. I was on the phone this afternoon with our mayor, Mayor Copen, and I know that you guys have an emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow to discuss the budget situation. I know people are hesitant to try to, this is a town decision, it's not for us, but the problem with the pensions was that was going to come out of reserves, and people understood if the governor was going to push that onto the towns, then you would look to your reserves. So even though my understanding is you may have budgeted an increase in your ECS of about 3.6, working closely with the town, I'm thinking that you guys will have difficult decisions, but it's not going to be anything near what we were looking at. And I'll just summarize, add this. I feel like we're the cavalry. I don't want to see Enfield downgraded by Moody's or Fitch's or Standard & Poor's. We're hoping to staunch the bleeding as soon as possible. We have caucused last week, Senate Republicans caucused yesterday, Senate Republicans caucused today, and I have been told to be at the Capitol tomorrow after 5 o'clock. The goal, aspirational, is that the Senate will vote this out tomorrow evening, and that the House will go in on Thursday and vote it out. And there is, I know, a hope amongst senators on both sides of the aisle that if we can cobble together 24 votes, that sends a message to Governor Malloy that that's a veto-proof number. And if he wants to go ahead and veto it, because he's picking on all the stuff that we're trying to do, then we'll just come back in a week or two and override that veto. So we want this to come to an end as fairly as possible, and I just thought it was extremely important. I think all of us did. We cannot have our municipalities getting hammered, and we can't have that pension being thrust upon your shoulders. And happy to turn it over to my colleague.
Just our numbers run just like John's numbers. I think just a point of clarification, that additional 169,580 in fiscal year 19 is in addition to the previous year. So what's happening in year 19 is you're gaining back what you're losing this year. So the actual number for this year, you've got 28,585,000. In 19, you're gaining. So you're going to be at 28,754,000. So you're actually reaping back what you're losing this coming fiscal year. So I think John kind of hit
Yeah, well, the
the highlights.
169,000 is above, you're getting restored what you lost this year, and then 169,000 is above that.
Right.
And so,
Right, and
we-
that's important to note because it's not 169,000 above your reduction. If
Right.
everybody follows me,
Above.
and you're gonna get copies of these
Above.
as well.
So we're good.
But it's definitely far better than the massacre that the governor's budget did to you in the executive order. So I can speak for myself. I think we passed an amazing budget that left you harmless in this coming year. As you know, we don't have the numbers to override the veto for our budget that got passed by both parties. This was a compromise that leadership have hammered out very, very diligently. We made some changes this week. I'm sure you all heard about the car elimination tax. That has been taken off the table. So we are leaving the car tax in place, and we're increasing the cap. So that was one of the big gives today that we heard about that was really important because that would have taken a huge hit to the town to the tune of about 15% to the budget itself. So it was a big deal. The town is gaining, so the town is gaining in the municipal runs, but not by much. I think the number is about 86,000 this year. So what we did is we do have municipal runs, but you guys are more concerned about the education dollars. I think the other thing important to note is these numbers that we're giving you do not include excess cost sharing grant. So the numbers, the reduction, that's without your special education overrun. So, and
I think they pretty much covered everything that's pertinent to the Board of Education. Obviously, the other side of it for the consumers out there is there's no broad-based tax increases for the state. There are a couple, which is hard for some of us because we were trying to avoid tax increases, but I came to the viewpoint if there's a 45 cents a pack of cigarettes increase to be able to make sure that the towns are made whole and kids get an education, well, it's a no-brainer for me. But there's no broad base, there's no tolls, there's no things going into effect there. What's good about this is the fact that, you know, we've created a budget, and Carol and I and Senator Kissel, John, we serve on appropriations, so we've worked on the budgets that's come forth all the way through the game here, and basically we were able to see a lot of things that were positive, no tax increase and things for the education for the town. But when we passed the budget with some Democrat support, it basically was in a situation where we didn't have the votes to have it vetoed, or override the veto. But here's the thing: it became the basis for which they negotiated on. And although, you know, we talk about, you know, who's majority, who's in minority, I think at the end of the day, and I think I said this back after I was elected, is that one of the healthiest things that could happen for the state of Connecticut is be so close in majority-minority that we're forced to work together to create a better state. And although there are things in this budget I'm not in favor of, I haven't decided fully where I'm at. I'm going to decide when I get more details. We asked a lot of questions in caucus today, so I'll make my final determination. But the bottom line is, I think everybody worked together, and I think that you ought to be proud of your legislative bodies throughout the state, because we worked hard. And the thing about it is our biggest concern, as yours concerned, was the big, giant, drastic cuts that was coming from the governors that would have devastated the school district and devastated our town. So the three of us have worked closely together, and we've communicated with your superintendent, with the board chair, the mayor, and the town manager. I think I've texted and called you guys in the last few days, talked in Florida when I was down there, to keep you informed as best we could where we're at, so that, because we knew that fear was arising, and you know, there's a panic stage, and I have 4 grandkids in this district, and so we did everything we can to make sure we have something that is workable. Bottom line is if this goes through, you won't have to make the hard decisions this year. You're going to get an increase next year, and the bottom line is the town manager doesn't have to send out supplemental tax bills to the citizens. So I think in all reality, we can enjoy Thanksgiving and be very thankful. So I'll leave it at that.
One more quick note. In caucus today, I did request information on the bonding for any sort of projects that are in the pipeline to make sure that our numbers are still there, and I was assured that they are not being adjusted whatsoever.
So the project for JFK basically is already in the pipeline, set to go. So.
Tim?
First of all, thank you, guys. It's been a lot of sleepless nights, I'm sure, for all of you. And also, it sounds like both parties worked together. You had a compromise. And there's no budget that, if you get a budget where you've worked hard and you don't get everything you want, but we took care of the needs, then it's a good budget.
Right.
Okay? We don't want everybody happy, because you can't make everybody happy in a budget thing. So first of all, thank you very much. I think one of the things through the whole process, I think that bothered a lot of us, and particularly me, is that we were looking at that, $26.5 million thing, which was, I'm looking at Enfield and saying, how did we do that? And you compare it with other towns, and it seemed that we were getting hit because we had been financially prudent in having a rainy day fund.
Exactly.
And it sounded like people were going after, I may be misreading it, so
No,
please.
you read it right.
Okay,
that's
and
right.
So we had money, and it was a prudent thing to do. It helped our bond rating, it helped a lot of things, and if we had a crisis, it helped it there too. Is that where we're going down the road?
Oh, no.
You know, it sounds like the towns that didn't do that we're getting.
No, that's the governor and his executive order, and so that's why Ben Barnes, Secretary of OPM, was calling up different municipal leaders, saying, "What's in your reserve account?" And I don't know if the governor's executive order was exactly formulaic. It punished towns that had reserve accounts, but it also tended to be very east of the river. Sort of like, I don't want to say if it was like a Republican-leaning town that they really got hammered, but a lot of the smaller towns and the towns that were run well were punished, and the towns that, or the cities primarily, that were not run well were held harmless for various reasons. I will say this, the last time we discussed the budget, and I support teachers, I'm not looking to pick on them, but it's my understanding way back when, over 20 years ago when I was in the majority, I worked with the CEA, and the problem was that when things went to arbitration, they looked to the town's reserve account to determine ability to pay.
Right.
And so working with them, we hammered out a compromise that said up to 5% of a town's reserve account can't be looked at for ability to pay. My understanding is one of the provisions in this bipartisan budget is that that's now going to be raised to 15%, because we want to encourage municipalities to have healthy reserve accounts and not have that used against them. And so that there's a lot of positive bonding cap, spending cap, a lot of structural changes, maybe not everything that everybody wanted, but things that folks have been looking for decades. And I'm hoping that not only will the towns feel the relief from the bond rating agencies on Wall Street, but hopefully the state as well, that they will look at Connecticut and say, you've made some of these deep structural changes, you're pointing yourself on the path. For example, the bonding cap is somewhere around $1.9 billion, and currently we're bonding close to $3 billion. So that's a huge change, and we need to move in that direction to turn this state around.
Well, I'm hoping that we learned a lot of lessons through this process. Okay, we don't want to go back here again, and I'm hoping that we can resolve some of the, there's some underlying issues that have been here for a long time that need to be addressed. And I guess I'm hoping you guys will work with the Democrats and try to put something together so we don't ever get here again.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I appreciate the fact that Representative Stokes is going to analyze all the details as the days progress. But my position right now is I'm a firm yes. I think it sends a tremendous signal. It's been decades since we've had a bipartisan budget, and I think that's an important message to send out there as well.
Thank you for everything. We appreciate your work.
Go
I
ahead.
think just to add to what John said, it's kind of important to note that I think everybody has worked really hard to work together. And we're getting a lot of pushback, quite honestly, from Republican constituents saying, you know, you did your part. You passed a budget. Why not step back now and just let it ride and let them figure it out? Well, to me, that's not the right answer. I'm sorry, but we're here for the betterment of the state and the town and the municipalities, and we can't just sit back and do nothing, because that's not what leaders do. So by working together with the Democrats to come up with a compromise budget that isn't everything we wanted, that we'll be the first to admit it, but I think it's a good compromise. So the alternative is ugly, and I don't want to go down that road. So I think I'm on the same page as John. As long as the details that were outlined to us today in our respective caucuses remains the same, I would have to support this, because anything else would devastate the town. So.
Well, obviously, I said before that I'm looking at a couple of things I got questions about and stuff, but obviously I've told a number of folks, including the superintendent, that I want to protect the town, so I lean towards this. But I have a couple of things I'm looking for or whatever, but the bottom line is I do think that this is a good compromise budget. I think a lot of hard work has gone into it. And the bottom line is that, and you mentioned the thing, I hope this is the way we go forward. Actually, I think hopefully it gives us a good trend, because I'm proud of the leadership on both sides of the aisle who sat around the table. And I know that after going with governor's budget and other information, our budget and stuff, they finally had to sit down and work. And you know something? I've been on the board with some of you before in town council. Some of the best places to be is around a table where you have to work together. So to me, I think at the end result, the state wins. So.
Ms. Blank.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you, because I can't imagine what you guys went through. I know what we were going through, and we weren't even able to be on the front line. I mean, you guys are Democrats, Republicans aside, you're people, you have a life, you have families, you know, and that was taking a lot away from you over these past few months. So I thank you. I appreciate your updates on Facebook, because I did follow them as much as I could to see. I would sometimes read them like, I don't want to see what they're saying. I don't want to see what they're saying. But I appreciate that. As far as compromise, it's all a give and take. I would say these last 2 years on the board, as far as working with the town council, have been a pleasure. I think we've built a bridge, and I'd like to keep that bridge. So knowing that the people that we have representing us at the state are willing to do that, that's usually helpful. So I have one budget-related comment, question, and then something else that's kind of just near and dear to my heart. I would just, maybe this is more of a comment, maybe just to get your thoughts, but I was going to be really mad if we had to make those drastic cuts and we were still funding the magnet schools, personally. I think we're trying to do a lot as a school district to keep the kids here in Enfield. We're making strides, and that frustrated me to no end, because that bill wasn't changing.
Right.
And that was going to create a deeper cut for us here in Enfield.
I think, you know, first of all, I sat in your seat, so I remember presenting the budget to the community here at the public hearing, and always giving that number of what we're spending on paying out the CREC and other things. And obviously I know that if you're dealing with a $20-some million cut, and with the town $26 million, you're looking at, okay, if we're not getting paid, do we not send out the checks and stuff? First of all, those kids are our kids. There are students, their families have chosen to educate them at places that are getting great educations, and so it's not us against them. But unfortunately what happens with these cuts the governor put forth, or was basically baiting us with, is the fact he forced it to be between us and them. And hopefully, we get this back in the can here, and it no longer can be us against them, it can be we. And they're all of our students, whether infield schools or the CREC or magnet schools or charter schools. They're students that need a great education, and our responsibility is to make sure that we provide the funding to make sure they get that the best education they can. So.
It's just a hard pill to swallow when we're still getting their bill and we can't pay ours. So that for me, that was it. Now, I've mentioned this anytime the legislatures have come up to us, and I know it's a process, and it's going to require committees and different things at the state level, but I have to say it anytime you guys are here, and it's nothing bad, don't worry, and it's not about the budget. But I really want the state of Connecticut to make the kindergarten age September 1st. Right now it's December 31st. Massachusetts is September 1st. We have a lot of kids starting school at the age of 4. Some kids opt not to. They start at the age of 5 going on 6. I personally went through it with my own son. He has an October birthday. And we had some difficulties with him, and we opted to wait that year, and it was the best decision we made. Oftentimes, when you talk to people who've made that decision to wait, they'll tell you they've never regretted it. People who have made the decision to go, oftentimes will tell you, I wish I didn't send them. One of the things I learned in my Board of Ed journey, that if your child is of age to go to school, and you decide not to send them, but they're receiving special services, they no longer are eligible for those special services because they can go to school,
To get those services.
but you're choosing not to send them. So in order for your child to continue getting those special services, you're almost forced to send that child to school with a possible retention in kindergarten. And I think that, now that we have full day kindergarten, I think that's helped those younger kids. But for me, when I was making my decision, I was talking to the kindergarten teacher, and she said, if you live 20 minutes up the road that way, you wouldn't even have to be making this difficult decision. So I mentioned it. We haven't had legislators here for a while, so I probably want to say the last time I talked about it was 3 years ago. And I knew that you guys were coming tonight, and I just wanted to mention that to you. So if something comes up or you hear something about it and you guys can look into it and start talking about it, I would really appreciate
We
that.
serve on the education committee, and I saw Carol wrote it down, so I can be sure. I didn't write it down because I'm looking over here going, yeah, she's writing it down, so, and she's a maverick when it comes to doing this. She's very good. So.
Right, and we have a great preschool program, and it's growing here in Enfield, and we have great preschools. We have Head Start. I would just really like to see that looked at. I think it was explained to me that it was going to require a committee, and it would be something that would have to be phased in over a certain amount of years. But I just wanted to share with you tonight because you were here. So
Yeah. It's not an easy change. There's pushback because this has been offered before. But just on a personal level, just human being to human being, I have 2 sons, very proud of them. Nathaniel's just turned 22, believe it or not, and my youngest is 13. But Nathaniel's birthday is September 30th. And so when we started him off in the school system, it was parochial direction we went. But he did great at Enfield High as well. But the teacher said he's just not ready. And so my wife and I are like, oh, we felt like losers because we go, oh, we can't. And so we were one of the families that said, we're going to hold him back. Best thing we ever did. Best thing we ever did. And I don't know if it's different, boys and girls, because girls mature faster, but I'm not so sure that that's at that age, if that makes a difference. I think it's just, but there's really a benefit to holding someone back so that they're ready to really do well in the school system. So I hear you. And I'm sure our delegation will have no problem asking the committee to raise a bill on that issue.
it's something to think about, especially with the children that are receiving the special services, because if the parents do choose to hold them back, then they are not eligible for those services anymore.
That's a good point.
Because they're for school age. So just something a Board of Ed member thinks about at night when they can't sleep, right? So, but thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for all your time, because I know you guys have put in so much time on this budget.
Thank you. We know you guys do the same. So, but to answer Greg kind of summed it up. We serve on education. We put a lot of education bills forward this year, so we'll definitely add that to the list next time around. So.
Rich?
Yes, thank you guys for coming tonight and all those endless meetings at the State House and midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. It must have been fun. A couple questions for you guys. One, transportation. I know last year we whacked about $700,000 in transportation funds. Has there been anything mentioned in the budget cycle in regards to the transportation fund in schools and how that's being handled, or is it going back to what it was before?
On that, I can get that information now. I don't think anything's been changed on it from last time and stuff. There's been no cuts in it or whatever, but we can check on that.
Okay. That'd be great. Another question I had was ECS formula. So obviously now that new money had gone out in this new budget, is there a exact formula that they're using now that
Yes.
everyone has agreed upon?
Yep. So the proposed formula we have here, and we'll leave it for you, and we'll have Chris make copies for you. But the reason the first year you take the cut in dollars is because the whole state took a 5% reduction in what they're getting. So that was unilaterally across every single town in the state. Year two, the year 19, where you go back up and you regain the money, is when the formula actually will kick in. So we have a copy of the proposed formula, and it is proposed until, like John said, we all vote. But we'll leave that with Chris, and he can share it with all of you. But it's not the formula that came forward with the Senate budget bill. It's a different formula. So it's kind of a hybrid of a bunch of different formulas. So we've been through, I can't even tell you how many formulas so far. It's been a lot. But this is a new one, and we'll be happy to share with you.
And if
So,
I can, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And we haven't really had a hard and fast formula for a number of years, and folks don't understand that. And so part of what our mission was to rationalize the system, because I don't want to pick on specific legislators, but in past years, you'd wake up and how did West Hartford get $8 million more than the year before? Oh, who's in charge of the Appropriations Committee? So, it was very ad hoc, and there was no basis for it. And so whoever was in charge, their districts tended to do really well, and everybody else sort of got what's left on the table. So there's different criteria, but it's trying to rationalize it so that, if there's certain elements of poverty in a school system and how the students are performing and whether the student population is growing, it's just unfair to continue to hold harmless towns if they're losing student population, whereas you have other towns that are holding or maybe even increasing, and they're suffering and getting less per pupil. And so we're hoping, there's a lot of good changes in this budget, and I think it's because it took a long time and it was bipartisan. People would come up to me for the last couple of months and said, we just need a budget, just pass a budget. And I told them, I said, we could pass a budget that you are going to hate. So it's not just pass something and just get it behind us. We wanted to use this time, as Carol and Greg said, this was our moment when folks were so close together. Let's work together and share ideas, because once that moment's lost, it's very, very difficult to get it back again. So.
Hi, Rich.
Just a final question for CREC is, how is CREC funding handled in the budget? Was it level funded? Is it any changes in their?
We don't have the correct numbers
I don't
yet.
have the correct numbers yet.
All we got today were our ECS numbers for runs for this latest negotiated budget and the municipal runs, so we don't
For
have.
the first year.
Right.
We don't have the runs for the second year for municipal, but we got the first year. So.
Right.
Oh, those will be in the budget cycle? The
Yeah.
correct numbers? Okay.
Oh, yes,
All right.
most definitely. We'll get the details. Probably it'll be sent to us, well, you'll get them before we will, but just to give you the kind of 30,000-foot formula, if you will. So the foundation number is still 11,525. And then the way they've broken it down is a guaranteed wealth level of 1.35. And then the property property weight is 70%. These are all on wealth numbers. And income weight is 30%. So all these numbers will pass out to you, but that's how they broke down the initial formula.
Thank you,
So,
guys.
You're welcome.
Vinny?
Quick question for you. You guys said that we're going to take the hit this year, and next year we're going to be going up, making up what we lost, and plus. With the way I remember listening to the news and hearing budget surpluses, and the next day it's a budget deficit by millions or even billions of dollars, is there a guarantee that those numbers are going to stay
Well,
what you're predicting now for next year?
there's never a guarantee. I mean,
Yes.
you know, because you get into the next year and all, if you find revenue numbers weren't exactly what they expected. And that's what we dealt with here is all this last year. And Senator Kissel's been a seasoned veteran at this for years, but I've caught on pretty quick is that you get your revenue numbers and they change when the new ones come in. And then you're in a deficit, you're calling surplus. And then, of course, the news, I've avoided the news during all this because I always say that isn't exactly what's going on when I watch the news. But I can tell you that I think when it comes to education numbers, and this is my viewpoint from what I read, there's a strong desire in the legislature to understand that one of our key responsibilities is education for children. And so to me is I don't see I don't see it becoming part of any type of deficit mitigation when it comes to the area if we run into a deficit, in say, for instance, in February or March, or which is possible, because I think we also know that we made a commitment to our towns. That's where I stand. But I think I had a read on both sides of the House, and that our desire is to make sure that we don't create a panic back home. So.
Thank you.
And to add to what Greg said, I think the other side that Enfield's sitting on, a kind of a good side, is that we've negotiated additional funds through some bills that were passed this year. So through legislation, bills for the casino that's going in East Windsor, Enfield stands to get another $1.5 million over and above. We were getting zero before we started arguing for it.
That casino.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a
Well,
whole nother discussion.
We didn't want the
But-
casino, but we knew it was coming there. We wanted to make sure
We
that
want-
the impact towns got money.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and we
So-
fought for that, so.
Yeah, that was a tough one. So we are, if you look at the revenue streams, we are actually doing okay with what we've got in front of us right now. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and, like Greg said, hope they don't touch our education funds, which I don't think there is a flavor or a taste to do any of that, so.
There was an anticipation too, I think, in the town, and you probably had conversations locally with them, that they were prepared, whether it was fund balance or whatever, for the teachers' pension to possibly shift it over to the towns. That was $4.5 million. So if you look at between the town and the schools, you're talking $1.3 million cut over 2 years, but you're not having the teacher's pension because that's not being shifted over. So you took a look at that there. So, you know, you work hard to make sure that you're trying to figure out where everything balances. And I think we've done a good job, and you've done a good job keeping us informed of the needs here too. So thank you.
And that was a big push that we really didn't talk about much, but it was a huge initiative by leadership and the delegations not to pass that pension on. That truly was the governor's initiative, and neither side of the aisle wanted to do it. It was a big no. It purely came out of the governor's office, and both sides fought very diligently to keep that out of the town's municipal funds, so,
There were a few Senate Democrats that won.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well,
Just want to let you know.
Okay, I have some questions, and some of these are going to be tough, and I want to begin by saying thank you, Greg, thank you, Carol, thank you, John. I know you guys have been in touch with me quite frequently, even John, who's called me up at 11 o'clock at night and said, Tom, you still there? I said, yep, and he left me a nice voicemail keeping me up to date, and I appreciate it. Greg, you've been contacting me pretty much twice a week, letting me know what's going on. Thank you, Carol. I know you're working really, really hard, and I'm very proud of all three of you guys. You guys are just doing Enfield proud, and you're doing the state proud. Excess cost. Now, I know you said there's no excess cost numbers in there. Is there still the 73% cap?
It's at the level it was previously, has not changed.
Okay.
So that's.
So there's still a cap on excess cost?
Yes.
Still a cap, sorry.
Same, nothing has changed in that formula at all.
Okay, something that I am concerned of is, as you're working on, if everybody's getting a 5% cut, if you cut crack 5%, they're going to pass it on to us. So if you're going to, if they're subject to a cut, make sure in the legislation they don't have the ability to raise their tuition to pass it on to us, because that's exactly what will happen.
Good point.
If it's going to be fair and it's going to be across the spectrum educational cut, make sure they can't backdoor it to us, which is one of the things that was very concerning for me with the governor's budget, was everything he was looking to pass down to the municipalities he was doing, and CREC will do the same darn thing.
Thank you for that information.
If you're going to put that in there, make sure that there's that caveat that they can't pass that cut on to us. Also, is there a bailout for Hartford?
What's that?
What? I'm sorry.
Is there a bailout for Hartford?
Yes.
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 How much?
but it's
Sort of.
it's not what you might think. Who wants to try to explain this one?
Well,
I have the numbers, if you need the numbers.
my understanding is, and a lot of this is fast-moving, a lot of separate parts, is there's money for Hartford, but there's also a requirement that they reorganize their debt to reduce the overall amount they have to pay on an annualized basis. So there is some money, but there's strings attached, and they have to do these reforms or there will be repercussions. And I know, and again, I wish I had more detail. As of like a week ago, we were going to have this like level of distressed municipality, and the higher it got, the more the state would intervene and essentially take over. Where that has actually landed, I'm not quite sure, because it's not just Hartford. There's a couple other communities that are right on the brink as well. So Luke's not getting everything that he wants, is my understanding. Maybe you have more information.
There's numbers here if you
And
want.
the other thing I want to add to that, too, if I
read that
could, is there's also going to be a review board set up to be able to have some accountability. The money is going to a bond fund, which then they have to validate what they want to take out of that bond money and what they want to do with it. So basically, there's a lot of accountability here. So it's not actually a bailout like, here's some money, hope you do well. There's a lot of accountability to it, so they don't get the same place again. So.
What was the? All right, now, in the original Republican budget that you guys put forward, and the original bipartisan budget that you guys put forward, because you actually got some conscientious Dems to vote for it, you started to address the contract issue, some of the structural issues that got us into this mess to begin with. If you use the governor's executive order for his justifications for certain cuts, $500 million was 2/3 of the total increase in fixed cost, and that was state employee benefits and to teachers' pensions. You guys started addressing that by getting the legislature more involved in contracts. Is that clause still there, or did that get thrown under the bus?
Well, we did make some structural changes, and we are going to be able to vote on all the budgets. So that was, all the contracts, excuse me, yeah. So that was left in.
Okay,
So
awesome.
it's huge.
Yeah,
That
sort of
was a
my-
huge win.
Last time we caucused this was a couple of days ago, and it's rather complicated, but let me just tell you what I understand. And like Carol said, hopefully everything is as we were discussing it, but it's the legislature, and between tonight and tomorrow, who knows?
And that's why I didn't say yes yet.
Well, I'm still a yes unless I'm proven no.
Right.
All right.
There you go.
We would vote on a contract. If we reject, it would go back to the arbitrators. They would make another determination. It would come back to us. We have an opportunity to reject again, and then it would go to the arbitrators a second time, and then that would be what remained. Their decision would hold, because we can't have it going on forever.
I understand.
There has to be an end. But just the process of voting on these contracts will change everything.
Yeah, just to add one more thing to the structural changes, which I think all of us that have sat through negotiations of contracts, when you do go to arbitration, it's always been last best offer by two. We've now changed that structurally, so now the arbitrator can make any sort of award. So it doesn't necessarily have to be last best on the table. They can make a compromise that they come up with somewhere between those two offers. So that's a huge win. Anybody that's gone through all the contract negotiations, that's big. So that was one of our structural changes as well.
Now, the other communities you were talking about, this all rolls into, because they still have these same structural issues, which is why I was concerned about Hartford. Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport combined have $2.7 billion in liabilities. These are all the top 4 cities in the state that are massively in the red. Hartford by far is the worst. And my concern was, and remains, and I think the average taxpayer, when he's looking at this, is going, these folks are suffering from largely self-inflicted wounds, and $2.7 billion when you're looking at a shortfall currently of $3.4 billion, where are you going to get the money from? And they pretty much put their heads in the sand and just went la-di-da. I mean, and if you bail out Hartford, now you have to bail out Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport. And because you've opened the door and you set the precedent. So folks like us who live up here and we argue with each other and we get people hating us because we're trying to wrestle with the budget and be fiscally responsible, these guys get to do whatever they want, and it's like, hooray, here's your money. And because I noticed when the governor's educational cost sharing grants came out, he increased the educational cost sharing for Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport, basically making the state pay for their education program on our backs. And because they're $2.7 billion total in a whole. I mean, it's not rocket science to see what's going on, but you can't let that happen when you're punishing guys like us that work real hard.
You guys know, sometimes there's practical ramifications in horse trading. On a purely policy level, yes, it establishes a precedent to some degree, but we're hoping there's enough strings attached that it effectuates some change as to how Hartford operates. It's also our capital city, and there was a presentation in the last week where experts from Detroit, which went bankrupt, it's a city in Rhode Island that escapes me, something Falls.
Fall Rivers.
What was it?
Fall Rivers.
I don't think it was Fall River. It was it's like Central Falls, Rhode Island. Central Falls. And they said there's also ramifications to the surrounding towns, of which I have Windsor, and so there's negative ramifications that way. But who's the majority leader of the House of Representatives? Matt Ritter. And in those negotiations, I can tell you, Matt Ritter did everything humanly possible to stave off bankruptcy for the city that he represents and he lives in. And so my guess is, and I don't know the exact horse trade, but they were pretty desperate. And so, yeah, on a purely policy level, and by the way, we've done this with other places in Connecticut and pulled their chestnuts out of the fire. But my guess is that a lot of the good stuff we got in this budget was because Matt was very desperate on that particular issue.
Yep.
Okay. Tim? Walter.
Oh, you still got budget question? Go.
Yep.
All right,
Go ahead.
go budget.
Okay, just a couple of things. One, I strongly support the kindergarten thing. I live with a kindergarten teacher, so, and I'll tell you, because it's come up, you're correct, it's come up a number of times in the last 10, 15 years, and it gets shot down for the wrong reasons. And I think there are lobbying groups that are out there working on that. We're one of the few states that does it. I mean, and the research is significantly in favor of doing it. I mean, like you, I kept my son back. He never would have made it out of grammar school if we had sent him when he was 12, okay, and he wasn't going to make it, and and now he has a great job. I hope he supports me in my retirement. He's working for Gilead. He's an experimental chemist making all these drugs and stuff like that. So I'm pleased that we kept him back. But it shouldn't have to make those decisions, and it puts parents in an awful thing. And sometimes daycare plays into it and all that stuff. But I would really encourage you, and you would get the support, I think, of KITE and all these other agencies within the state. It's educationally sound, and we just need to do it. It keeps getting kicked down the road, and we're becoming a loner out there of states that does it that way, and it doesn't make educational sense. So I'll put that aside. My wife will be cheering for me now because I've made that statement on her behalf. The other one has to do with the charter schools. And it's not, I've heard about CREC. What's happening with the charter schools? I never can figure out how many we're funding and what the reason is. And I may be wrong, but I don't think they're assessed. Like, we have to assess how our kids are doing. They're not in that equation. And I mean, we're very, very proud of how our kids are doing, and they're working hard, and I think our scores are increasing, and I think we're seeing, quality performance out there. But it's very, very hard to compare if we're not comparing apples and apples. And so I could be wrong, but I think, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, do they go through the assessments, the charter schools, that we have to go through for the state?
They are assessed, but they're governed not by a local board of education, so their policy and
Okay.
the way they're funding is a little bit different.
It just seems as if we're funding that or building them or approving them, that we should have some standard there, okay? So if you guys can look into that, that'd be great. The other thing has to do with pension payments. We've been talking about pensions as long as I've been around. I did 38 years under the pension system, and I've seen it change, and I saw, I think, 8 or so years ago, where the state did not fund their share of it. And that's how we get into these problems. I mean, I can tell you where I paid the check, because every 2 weeks it came out, as it should, okay? But we get both the state workers' pensions and the teacher pensions, I believe, are significantly underfunded, and we have a liability with that. We need to address that somehow. I'm hoping that this budget, I didn't hear this, but it's probably okay, that in this budget that's being proposed, the state's paying their fair share, or their required share of the state workers' pensions and the teachers' pensions. Am I making the correct assumption?
Well,
I thought that was going to be a quick yes.
I've gotten over 100 emails in the out year, fiscal year 19, in this budget. Teachers are going to move from 6% to 7% contribution.
1%.
So 1%.
Into their pensions.
And into the, and
Not the
It's going
general
into the
fund.
pension fund, not into the
correct.
general.
not the
fund.
general fund.
Not the
Okay.
general
Which,
fund.
which inadvertently was in the first Republican
Right.
budget, or the bipartisan budget.
Yep.
And that was a mistake. So it's going into the teachers' pension fund itself. Trust me, they are not happy about that whatsoever, but, for what it's worth, the average in New England is over 10%.
Massachusetts is 11.
Right. And to the best of my knowledge, the state is not reneging on its commitment for whatever it has to put in there as well. Because we understand that. We don't want to be in the same soup as we have been in the past, as far as pensions go.
Okay, the additional 1%, I've seen that discussion. I don't want to get into that tonight. My biggest concern is what the state's doing. Because I know that pension.
I'm making a best
Assumption?
guess estimate. I don't know for certain. We can try to get that information to you.
If you-
Get
if-
to the numbers, Tim.
I'd be
Okay, if you
surprised.
can get the
if
numbers
they're
to Chris, he'll
pulling
get them
back
to
on
us.
it.
That would be great. Because if we don't pay it, we're just going further behind. And
Right.
and then I'd have a question about this budget if we're going to do that, because those are significant numbers.
Right. All I can say is that I have immense trust in my leader, Senator Fasano and Senator Witkos, who have been in the room constantly with this. And we want to put Connecticut on a sound financial footing so that the bond rating agencies look favorably upon us. And so that's why I base it on that. I can't see them being short-sighted.
Good.
They are definitely contributing, Tim. We'll just get you what those numbers are. We've seen the line items, so it's there. We're not,
That's fine, as long as,
We'll get 'em to you.
as long as it's the percent that they're supposed to, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we just fall further behind.
Part of the problem we had with that was the amount of the expectation of what they were going to make on the investment.
Investments.
Correct.
And in appropriations, we adjusted that, and it's still probably not real realistic, although I understand that the first, for the first quarter or whatever, or it was
It was
like
13%. This last
quarter, so
was
it's pretty good
13%.
investment return now.
It was good.
But still, I think we got it at 6. They had it originally at 8, I think. So a lot of it has to do with that overestimation of what you're expecting. We all have. I mean, I have an IRA, and my wife has a 401k and IRA, and we have a few of those and stuff. And we hope for 6. We don't always get it, but in the long run, at the end of the year, and you see your average for the year was 6%, you're pretty happy. So.
No,
And those numbers are set by the retirement board too,
Right.
Tim. They're not numbers that the state comes up with.
Yeah.
So we've argued on the state side that they're overinflated numbers for years. But they did step it back a little bit this year, but that's from their own retirement board, that those numbers are coming out.
Okay. Final question. We asked a question about the ECS formula. I'm thrilled that you guys would come up with one, even if it's a draft one right now. And the stories I had heard, and I thought I heard you guys kind of confirm that, is that they weren't always following the formula totally in previous years.
Right.
Okay? And I
Tim, it was not at all.
I'm pretty conservative, and that drives me crazy. If you have a formula and the citizens think you're carrying it out and you're not, that makes my blood pressure go up. So, do you have a way to make sure that this new formula is going to be carried out? Are there any kinds of ways to monitor that, police that? Because there's no sense in having a formula if we don't use it.
It's all
That's my
coming in the
opinion.
budget.
I'm not after you guys.
Yeah, no.
It'll be in writing. I mean, you'll
It'll
see
be in
'em.
writing, but-
But all those numbers were, for the example that John gave, those were numbers that were in the budget. I mean, you could see
Oh, yeah.
the pork that was going to some of these towns, so I mean, they weren't hiding them. They were just there. So
They just weren't following their
these
own
numbers
rules.
don't reflect any of those numbers. So
But you're
that's good.
exactly right. Out of fairness, to me is I can accept, even when I was board chair, I can accept what we get as long as I know it's fairly distributed across the state. And to see some of the ways things were changed, even in the budgets that we saw before, a lot of earmarks to gain votes and stuff like that. And fortunately, with the bipartisan, everything that was pork, that was earmarks for somebody's special thing, they're all gone. So that's better for the entire state. But you're right, and so I think the only thing you can do is just it can change. Politics can change stuff. Hopefully, we will set a standard that will be followed because our kids need to be educated fairly. So.
And from our side, we just need some predictability as to what's coming, because we're at the end of the stream.
Well, hopefully, like Senator Kissel said, is that if they pass theirs, you said, Senator, with 24 votes?
Yes.
If we pass ours with 101, those are veto-proof. So if we pass by Thursday night, you see they pass 24, we pass 101, you pretty much know that the governor can't play with it, so Friday morning may be a bright, sunny day.
I'm looking for bright sun.
I think it's supposed to be.
Walter, thanks, guys. I
That's a
appreciate
good
it.
sign.
One last budget question. Did you get a copy to the governor?
Not yet.
Because that's all he comes out and says. I don't have a
He's
copy
already-
yet. I can't talk about it.
We're told he's already said he's going to veto whatever comes out, so we have to just make sure that the numbers in both House and the Senate are veto-proof numbers, so
And-
we
and-
expect a
And then if he
veto.
vetoes it, we'll just come back and override it.
Right.
Fine. That'd be awesome.
But you will know by the numbers of the vote.
And we should just let ETV know that this is exclusive, only on ETV right now. Nobody else has this.
Must-see
Fresh
TV.
off
Yeah.
the press.
Fresh off the press.
Literally.
And then I have another budget question that we talked about, Representative Hall, about the stoplight.
Yes, I did check today on that with DOT, and they have no new news. In fact, I spoke with Pam, who's the liaison for DOT to us, and she said that she has nothing that she can find that ever came from the town. So I got hold of Deb McCarthy, and I forwarded the email from her, and she has it in her hand. So I expect some sort of answer for you tomorrow on the light.
Awesome.
And if folks know what we're talking about is that one thing that in Senator Kissel's office was, and Carol and I, we worked together to, they put in the turning lanes going in Info High, but we did get the DOT to commit to put the traffic light there, high-tech one that will make sure it's a safer entrance to Info High. So we're just trying to get that facilitated as fast as possible.
And again, just thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Before I go, I just want to say this. I served with Tom, and I've served with Stacy, and I served, of course, with Vinny. I don't know if I served with, and I think, are you all three retiring from the board? So I just want to say, before I don't lose my opportunity, we served together. It was a privilege, and you guys have done a great job. I appreciate all that you've done for this community, and I appreciate your friendship more importantly. So thank you for your service. And the rest of you that are running, good luck with what you're doing, and I know Enfield will be well served. So congratulations and thank you guys.
Ditto for me, too.
Ditto, thank you.
One last thing before you go.
Okay.
There is a amendment to the state constitution that says that you have to live with a balanced budget, and I believe it was 2 years ago he said that doesn't apply because you guys never came up with rules. Please do me a favor and come up with a set of rules so no one will ever say that again.
Well, we're dealing with the spending cap, and the spending cap that's being put forth is in many ways the Republican version of the spending cap, which includes the pensions and stuff there. So basically, so that's one thing that's good coming out of this. Structural change is happening.
Thank
Got to
you.
keep it going. So.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having us.
Really quickly, Mr. Chair, before our delegation leaves, I just wanted to say on behalf of us, and I know I speak for behalf of the board, first of all, we've never been more relieved to hear we're getting cut $1.5 million before and hopefully a lot of our teachers are at home watching this, realizing that it's not $26 million. So
Thank our teachers for all they
ETV
do.
exclusive and for their patience through this whole process. But I wanted to extend my appreciation to the three of you. All three of our delegates, since this began in the summertime, have been in constant communication with my office, whether they're sending over any of the latest drafts or texting in the middle of the night. I won't hold you to it, but thank you all for your continued communication. And I know you've always been, as soon as something new would come out, they would call and say, what does this mean for you guys? And obviously 26 million meant we're closed. So thank you again. And I know it was mentioned earlier, but I wanted the whole world, the whole town to realize that you guys are doing what you said you did. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks,
So-
Chris.
Thank you. All right, guys. Have a good rest of the
Thank you.
Mr. Mueller from to discuss the Asnuntuck Partnership. Coming up, Joe.
Joe Mueller, 28 Broadbrook Road. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here tonight to talk about Asnuntuck Partnership and the different ways that students enrolled in high school can earn college credit for Asnuntuck classes. There's three ways. There's college career pathways, college connections, and high school partnership program. The college career pathways, they can earn up to 13 college credits at no cost. Classes take place at the high school, but they're developed and overseen by a faculty at Asnuntuck. The College Connections develop partnership with the region's technology employers. You can earn high school and college credit while learning a more focused career and skills. The high school partnership program, you take classes at Asnuntuck free, and you explore new topics and earn credits that transfer toward a 2 or 4 year degree. General studies, biology, whatever you prefer. I've been the building superintendent at Asnuntuck for over 22 years. I oversee all construction projects at Asnuntuck. Many of you know we have the new Advanced Manufacturing Center building in back, 27,000 square foot. It's where the football field was, so that's now gone. Well, we did keep the track. Part of the track was paved now. We kept it for Allied Enfield Stars. The community uses it quite a bit. The front project, we got rid of quite a bit of the junior high look, so it no longer looks like Kosciuszko anymore. It's stair tower, 10,000 square feet addition there, roughly. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions?
Mr. Neville?
I rode by there for the first time in a while last night, and I was
Yep.
totally impressed. I've seen the construction vehicles out there, but it really looks great.
Oh, yeah. They're doing the front
Very,
lawn.
very, very impressive, and I like it. I particularly like the connections that you have with high school, and I don't know whether you know the numbers in terms of how many of our students take part in
I don't know.
Okay.
Mr. Dreddick?
I think currently, in previous years, we had about 3 kids enrolled in the College Connections. This year, we're at 16.
That's great.
And there's actually a demand for more than that. And I ran into Mr. Miller last week when I was over at his Nantucket meeting with President Lombella about more opportunities for kids,
Yeah.
of which he also committed to coming to a board meeting as well. So I told him if I got to go on TV, he's coming with me.
Great.
I think that's great. I know one of the problems that kept us in low numbers was because of transportation. I know we were going to use the Magic Carpet bus. Are we using that, or are we using a Smith bus?
Nope. We're now using Smith Bus.
Okay, and that's working out okay?
So far, so good.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. I mean,
Thank you.
those programs, I've heard nothing but positive things from parents and from kids who are enrolled and so on. And boy, I wish I had something like that when I was young and dumb and had a chance to make a good living, in taking those courses, the machinist courses and stuff like that. They're just fabulous.
It's real good.
So keep up the good work.
Tom, one quick thing I forgot.
Go ahead.
They're at JFK as well, right, with the additive manufacturing. So it's JFK to the high school and then to college. So they're really,
Career Pathway starts at the middle school. and
yeah,
works its way.
it's really good for them.
Ms. Unger?
Thanks for coming here and explaining all that. I've been over to the school, and when you had that stairwell,
Yep.
you had your ribbon cutting
The ribbon
ceremony, and Walter and I were there. It was a
Yep.
beautiful ceremony. It was really nice. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. If anyone would like a tour, let me know.
Mr. Rainier?
Joe, I don't want to date you or myself, but when I was in high school, I actually took part in the high school partnership program as not community college. It was a criminal justice intro course,
Yes.
and it was awesome. Judging by the years, you were the superintendent back then.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever met, but
No.
it was a great program back then. I remember there's a couple kids in my classroom from Fermi that went there, and it was just phenomenal. That was that was 3 credits less that I had to take in college,
Right.
but the experience itself was just so overwhelming. So it's a great partnership in this town. The fact that we can partner with a local college and get our kids in there, not just the college experience, but now machining. It's phenomenal. So I just want to thank as Nutsuk and the partnership they have with this town.
Mr. Griselle?
Yeah, dittos on that, and thank you, Joe, for coming. And the machine shop program, definitely anyone interested in that, please check it out. It's a great addition to the college, and they got a great space there now. A lot of great machines in there, and it's a great program.
The welding as well.
And welding, yes,
The
welding as
welding's
well,
amazing.
yes.
So, just to follow up on everybody's comments, I mean, Mr. Neville and I have been working really hard with the administration to expand as much as we can with our partnerships with Nantucket. I know when he was chairman, it was a big deal for him. When I've been chairman, we've been hammering Chris over here to make sure it expanded in the right direction, and Dr. Schumann before him, and specifically like the welding and the manufacturing program. If you take a look at that recognizes that not every kid is going to go to college. And it changes that mentality that in order to be successful, you have to go to college. Because these kids are graduating out of Nantucket, and they're walking into $36 to $40 an hour jobs, and they don't have any student debt. And they can feed their families, and that's a pretty decent thing. And the fact that we brought it from the high school down to the middle school, and we're starting to get a better main line, shows that we're taking care of our kids, even the ones that aren't going to go to college. Now, we had a board rep that was a student rep, Abby Bosco, who graduated. I think she's a handful of semester hours because of those partnerships from an associate's degree, and it didn't cost her a dime. I mean, that's walking out of high school with having to make up, I believe, a year's worth of college to get an associate's degree, that's awesome. And again, it's because us guys here and the administration and you guys over there are all working hard together to make sure that all of our kids are taken care of. And I think you deserve a lot of credit. Mr. Dresnick and Dr. Schumann, prior to him, deserve a lot of credit. These guys here deserve a lot of credit for it, too, because we're all working together. And it's one of those things that makes our school system really competitive. Mr. No.
Just one other kudo for you guys. It's really nice to read in the paper that the other community colleges are taking those machining taking the ideas from us, and they're honoring Enfield because it was started over here.
Yes.
And they're copying that program out so the rest of the state has it. So I mean, there's a lot of good things come from Enfield, and we should be celebrating those things. And
absolutely,
we appreciate the work that all of you do over there because it didn't happen by accident.
Thank you.
A lot of hard work.
Any other questions? Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Another round of applause.
ERFC before and after school programs. Claire, come on down. Here's some more good stuff about Enfield.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Thank you for having us. We're going to have a presentation for you so you can sit back, relax, and just enjoy. So I'm going to stand over here so I can see what I'm doing. Dave's going to get us going. I need the wireless, absolutely. Yeah, it's right here. All of you have a packet while Dave's getting us going with information, current information about ERFC. We have a new catalog that we have and also copies of the slides tonight, so you can learn more. If you don't already know about us, you'll learn more today, this evening. F5. Okay, very good. Since 1994, we've been providing out-of-school time opportunities for Enfield families. Move it on, Dave. We're going to go quickly. We started a campaign just in the last couple of years that says After School Matters in Enfield, and we work with the state in order to develop different opportunities, in order to look at what Enfield needs academically and support. We worked in looking at what kind of funding can help support. So our campaign continues, and we know by the kids and the families that we serve that after school does matter for Enfield families. Right now, we just opened all morning programs in the elementary schools. This year, we opened 2 new programs at Prudence Crandall and Parkman. Enrollments, Parkman has not opened yet because we're still working on enrollments, but Crandall is fully operating with about 10 kids now. Most of your morning programs are averaging about 15 kids, so it is a popular time for working parents. Our other after-school centers have been paired with sister schools. So Enfield Street and Parkman are one center. All our centers operate in the K-2 buildings. Parkman students are bused to the Enfield Street, as well as Eli Whitney to Hazardville, and Crandall students to Barnard School. JFK After School is a standalone. All students in grades 6 to 8 are invited to attend that program. We just soft rolled out this evening, our core values. These values, Dave, why don't you tell us a little about
Sure, thank you.
Oh, you have a mic right there. You keep your own.
Oh, great.
Right there.
Thank you. I can even sit. Our core values were a process of looking at what we're doing, what we want to be, and how it ties into our mission statement. We worked with staff. We have a core staff of 9 full-time people, between 40 and 50 center-oriented people working in the after-school, before-school program. And we looked at these concepts of what we do, what we want to do, what we aspire to, and worked with our staff, both full-time and in the centers, as well as the students who work with us, to discover what is it we're doing and how do we describe it. And these core values boil down to community, character, strategy, passion, and of course, education. We build strong communities. That's a huge focus for us. We commit to be our best. We work together to find solutions, which is an important part of what we're doing with the children in the centers. We make learning fun, which is essential. We look for the kids to be lifelong learners and for the staff to be engaged in that process too. And we are always learning. Every day is a new learning opportunity for the students, for the staff, for the agency together.
Make learning fun. That's the key here. And the kids, that was their actual favorite core value. Funding success for partnership. Without the partnership of Enfield Public Schools, we would have difficulty securing the funding needed to help subsidize our families. Right now, we provide subsidies to over 60% of the children we serve. The families receive on a sliding fee schedule financial assistance based on grants, donations, fees, however we bring the dollars in. But the partnership with the Enfield Public School is critical. Since 2002, we've secured over $4.2 million in federal and state grants. We've leveraged over $2.2 million in additional funding from our foundations, from corporations. And we do provide that sliding fee schedule because of all these grants. So they're really critical. They're critical in operations, but mostly they're critical in providing help to families who cannot afford full fees for after school. Quality after-school programs keep kids safe and communities safe. 86% of our American police chiefs say that after-school programs are essential to preventing youth crime and violence. That number keeps growing. I remember 5 years ago, that was at 70. So it keeps growing. So after-school programs and the development and implementation are critical in all our communities. Before and after school centers, what we do is we work our best to align with the school day to include academic enrichment, health, wellness, and recreational activities for kids in grades K to 8. That is our focus. We operate from 7 in the morning until the start of the school day, and from the end of the school day until 6 p.m. 5 days a week. Again, the grants provide us the financial assistance, scholarships. We work with Care for Kids. Most of you know that Care for Kids has truly affected funding for families. There are 32 families who were receiving Care for Kids that lost it this year, and it's caused a lot of issues for these working families, or families that are just trying to go to school, parents that are working multiple jobs. So we're hoping that turns around with the state eventually. And we provide military fee assistance also to available to families. In this academic gains, we do a lot of data. The data is for our federal grants, our state grants, our federal grants, our state grants also. But 70% of the students enrolled last year in language arts, math, and science, according to report card data, increased. And 86% of the students enrolled completed their homework to teacher satisfaction. That's always one of our main focus. Homework is not an option for us students. Homework has to happen. And they have 50 minutes of it every single day. We had 134 students enrolled in K through 3 that participated in our early reading success initiatives this year. And that was a special grant. We've been working with United Way of North Central Connecticut for several years. And this early reading success is for us to get these kids reading at grade level and we're assisting in that process. What do we do after school? Well, there's homework and study time. We have cultural arts. We do STEAM, many different kinds of activities. We try to address the different the different things that kids really like to do, the cooperative games, so they're active. We do a lot with math and literacy, specialty clubs. And this year in 2018, we'll be introducing a new Kids Serve program, which will incorporate community service learning. Our enrollment for last year, we totaled 2,025 kids. This is our highest enrollment we have ever had in a variety of programs that we provide. Before and after school at 270, all the way down to having community engagement where we involve families and kids in outreach activities in the evening, opportunities for parents to meet with community service providers, a total of over 2,000 in 2016-17. After School Adventures is another program that we have that is a fee-based program, that is not a subsidized program. But what happened was parents told us they wanted short-term activities in addition to the center activities. A lot of parents didn't want to enroll their children for a full school year. So we developed After School Adventures, which are 6 to 10 week sessions. And they're open to all Enfield students, even students that are homeschool or going to other schools within the community. We have programs in after-school intervention and theater. We do a lot of cooperative game. We have a new program called Eye Contact that's helping with students recognize that the iPhones and the technology is not the only way to make a contact. Of course, we have our kids sports, which has been around for several years, and Kids Write. We have several students in Enfield schools that are published authors. Healthy Meals, Healthy Minds. Many of you may not know that, but ERFC, in partnership with the Enfield Food Shelf, we work to make sure that kids and families have the food they need in order to succeed. This partnership has been, this is entering year 3. It's been a Mass Mutual funded partnership, and we've been able to do a lot of community outreach and awareness activities because of it. Community engagement, because of our Healthy Meals, Healthy Minds initiative, we provide that strength-based case management. We invite community service providers to bring resources to our family night activities, and we have average of 2 family night activities happening somewhere in town all through the school year, throughout the school year. Summer Lunch Bunch, probably many of you know about that. It's a free USDA program. A total of over, I believe it's 1,300 meals were served this last summer. We not only serve to children, but we also, if the parents attend with the kids, we also make sure that they receive meals also. We have several teachers who volunteer time in Summer Lunch Bunch to work on literacy centers, and that's been very successful with helping with some of the summer learning loss. Tonight in Thompsonville, again, a Healthy Meals, Healthy Minds initiative happens at St. Patrick's Hall. We focus on making sure that families from Thompsonville attend these events, so it's situated where they can easily walk to it. Again, there are educational and enrichment activities, and the community service providers come out to meet families and to talk with them and to help them with services. That's what we have, and thank you to all of you for giving us this opportunity.
Charlotte.
I just wanted to say that what you guys do with ERFC is great. I especially like the partnership that you do with the school PTOs. I thought it was really great that you did the dinner event with coinciding with the book fair at Barnard last week, and that was a really good program, and I thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Tina.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to say, when I was looking through your catalog, how excited I was that the 3 through 5 grades get bused to the K through 2 schools, because I know that when we reconfigured the school district, there was a little bit of an issue with that, about having parents to have to pick up at both schools and still having to get their kids off to dance or karate or soccer practice. So that makes me really happy. So I'm sure it must make you and the parents very
much
happy.
so. And a thank you to Enfield Public Schools for working with us to make that happen for families.
Absolutely. And vacation destination, I'm sure the parents just absolutely love that.
That program is really helpful for the working parents. And we also have a lot of parents who work in Enfield but have kids that come in with them and they're able to participate. So it is a growing program.
That's good.
Definitely.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a big supporter of ERFC, as you know, so thank you for coming out tonight.
Tim.
Likewise. I've worked with Claire for years. I won't say how many, Claire.
No, we won't.
But we've watched the program evolve, okay, and looking at the number of the enrollment and the number of activities you have, and the number of programs you have, it's a big difference from, say, 10 years ago when we were still looking for grants and stuff like that. In fact, Claire is a prodigious writer of grants. She does a superb job of getting that. She's masterful. But speaking of grants and funding, you've done a good job of getting that there and making it work. Are you caught up in it? I know you've applied for state grants and stuff like that.
We're waiting.
We haven't heard anything from these folks. Yeah, I bet
No,
you were.
we're waiting for the state, obviously the budget, and we have a JFK grant, which is about $135,000. It's for 2 years, $135 per year. Yeah. So we're holding on that one. We're still operating programs without this funding. And we're waiting on the federal grant, the 21st Century grants, which probably looks like they're not making decisions till end of December.
Wow.
So for us, a lot of expenses are retroactive to July, so it's tough.
Yeah,
It's
I
really
bet it
tough,
is.
so we're all holding on.
No, if anybody can make it work, you can, Claire. I know that. Give you a pat on the back for how you kind of stretch those nickels
Stretch
there.
a lot of dollars.
But it's very, very impressive to look at what you're doing, and it never gets stale. You just keep adding new things, and it's powerful stuff. And I think, I know what you do. I know what your staff does. But looking at the variety of programs that are out there, and I applaud you. I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you. We have a great staff. We have a very passionate and committed staff. Anyone who works with nonprofits will know that. It takes that. Thank you.
You and I have known each other for 8 years, and hasn't always been a smooth ride between you and I, but we've come a long way since then. You've done a remarkable thing with the program. You keep putting on different layers, and I know you very well. You're tenacious, and I know you're concerned about your budget, but I'm fairly certain you'll find a way, because if anybody can, it will be you. Keep up all the good work. I'm very proud of the partnership that you have within our community. Keep it up. You're doing a great job, Claire.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Both our representatives are here, so it would be prudent, since we're going a little longer, to start with them.
Okay. Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and first I want to talk about the parent-teacher conferences that are coming up in November. They're being scheduled, like the parents are scheduling them right now, so that's a good thing to look at. And then the college fair is tomorrow night from 7 to 9 in the Enfield High Gym. And then I just want to mention the senior nights that are coming up for all of the sports. Field hockey senior night is tomorrow night, and they're all home games. Girls volleyball is this Thursday, October 26th. Girls soccer is this Friday, October 27th, and then boys soccer is next Monday, October 30th.
Thank you, Sarah. Matt?
I'll start with what's near and dear to me. The band's competition season ended, and we took home 3 first-place trophies.
Sweet. Yay!
Thank you. And on a similar note, the music department will be holding a benefit concert on Thursday, November 6th at 6:30 in the Enfield High Auditorium. And the ticket is a non-perishable food item that will go to the Enfield Loaves and Fishes. Another exciting thing is that the list of accepted people into the National Honor Society was posted on Monday, and the induction will be held this Thursday, also in the Enfield High Auditorium.
Very good. Thank you, Matt.
What was that date again?
For which?
The I thought I heard 6th. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Wednesday, November 8th, Enfield High is going to be hosting a national letter of intent signing ceremony for several Division I and II college-bound students. We're obviously extremely proud of the outstanding student athletes. There's a memo in your packet from our athletic director, Corey O'Connell, that has additional information. But since the time the memo was given to you, we actually have an addition. So I'm going to do the best I can to not butcher these kids' names, but give them the recognition that they deserve. We have Mary Baskerville, who's attending Providence College to play basketball. Danielle Delano, who's attending Central Connecticut State University to play basketball. Katerina Fonseca, sorry. I knew Tina would help me. She's playing basketball at Assumption College.
Gigalone.
Taylor Gigalone, who will be going to University of New Haven to play field hockey. Delaney Lawler, who will be going to Central to play soccer. And I was just notified today that Sarah Marino will be going to Queens College to play soccer. Sweet. So you're all invited November 8th to the National Letter of Intent Day at Enfield High School. As you know, we have several events coming up at the school with regards to dismissal days. All Enfield students will not attend school on Election Day, Tuesday, November 7th. Also, all Enfield public schools and administrative offices will be closed on Veterans Day, Friday, November 10th. And all Enfield public schools K-12 students will be dismissed early on Tuesday, November 14th and Thursday, November 16th for K-5 conferences and a half-day staff PD. You're all also aware that our next meeting will be a special Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, November 14th here in Council Chambers, where our town clerk will administer the oath of office for our newly elected Board of Education. However, we will also use that opportunity to recognize our outgoing Board of Education, and I challenge all of you to make sure that Mr. Grady is in attendance. I only have one shot at this, excuse me. I actually wanted to add something to that. For those of you who may not be aware, we're actually partaking in, as part of the Youth Vote curriculum this year, that all our grade 5 classes in the district are participating in the Connecticut Kids Governor Program, which is a statewide civics program created by the Connecticut Public Affairs Network. The program allows our students to learn about civic engagement, research community issues, participate in the electoral process in an authentic way. primary elections were held in the classroom, the building at the district level, so that Enfield can move one candidate from our 3 to 5 schools forward as Enfield's representative for the Kid Governor race. That candidate will be announced tomorrow. And what I was hopeful that, and as your last meeting, since you're not officially sworn out on November 14th before the new board is sworn in, I'd like to bring forth that whoever Enfield's representative as Enfield Kid Governor to come be presented to the Board of Education as a parting gift on your way out. One of the other things I've had a conversation with, because the current mayor is no longer running, though he is the only mayor we have at the moment. The idea we had from our social studies department was, in the event that Enfield's representative was not successful in becoming Connecticut's Kid Governor, that as the program continues, that we would name that student Enfield's Kid Mayor. The current mayor was very enthusiastic about that, and had passed that along to council members who may be returning. Some of you who may become council members, don't be surprised. So the idea has been endorsed at the council level that in the event our Enfield's Kid Governor representative is not successful, then that person will then be announced as Enfield's Kid Mayor. So I thought it was important to bring that student forth on your last, and some of you's news, for first Board of Education meeting. There's also a list of events. I won't read them all off that are in your packet. I just want to make a reminder that for the Enfield Youth Vote, on Election Day, grades 4 through 12 have the same polling locations as their parents. So if any parent wants to bring their student that's grade 4 through 12 to vote as part of the Youth Vote program, you go to your same polling location as your parents. And the sites and the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the grants report is in your packet, as well as the personnel report, and that will conclude the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Dreddick. Any audiences? Okay, on the audience portion, we're going to call someone up, and we're going to ask that you announce your name and address for the record, and that you try your very best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. So, Mr. Rutledge, come on up.
Good evening, Chris Rutledge, 7 Victory Street. It's interesting tonight, it was just about a year ago when I came to this board to bring up the idea of forming a debate team at Enfield High School. I know you guys forwarded that information over to, at the time, the assistant superintendent, Mr. Drezik, who put me in touch with the current assistant superintendent, Mr. Longy. I just want to sincerely thank you for that. I've had the pleasure this year of working with Kim Bender, one of the Family and Consumer Sciences teachers at the high school. We have a very motivated group of students who is participating on the debate team. We're actually right now preparing for our first tournament on Saturday, November 11th at Crosby High School. And, you know, as I've said a couple times, I just wanted to say thank you very much. Debate is definitely a wonderful activity. It helps develop the arts of communication and critical thinking, which are really quintessential for our students' future. And, you know, I hope everything goes well and we can keep the program, and who knows, not to make a commitment, but maybe at some point in the future we can show off our new high school hosting a debate tournament in Enfield. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Berry.
I'm here to speak as chairperson of the PAC for the referendum to renovate JFK. I wasn't on, sorry. Trish Neal Berry, 48 Buchanan Road. Once again, I'm here to speak as chairperson of the PAC for the renovation and the referendum for JFK. I've been with this project since the beginning. I was originally in the pro-Fermi side and spoke very clearly to all of you about that. But then once it became JFK, I decided that if it was going to be JFK, I was going to make it the best JFK that it could be, which is why I went to be on the committee of the referendum. I think we've come up with a great plan for JFK. There's really to me, no downsides of the plan that we're coming up with. There's 70% reimbursement for renovate to new, and Ms. Hall just said that that money is in the coffers. So people who are saying online the money is not there, it is, because she just checked it. And the other things that I wanted to say was the school really needs the complete renovation to new. It's $28 million just to fix everything. For 31.7, we can get a completely new junior high that'll bring the kids into high school. You know, there'll be a whole new arts wing. There'll be a new chorus, orchestra, band, auditorium. The pool is staying. That was a big bone of contention for people. It's staying. All the locker rooms will be fixed. The other thing that I wanted to say with regard to the PAC is me. My mother is treasurer. I have not been put up to do the PAC by anyone that's on the Republican Town Committee or on the Democratic Town Committee. If you all know me, I don't like politics. I don't like our president. I don't like our governor. I don't like anything to do with politics. I'm doing this because I feel it for the kids. Okay? There's no one who put me up to this, and trust me, if I could have found somebody else to do it, I would. But I'm trying very, very hard to get the word out there about the referendum and how important it is to vote yes for the referendum. We're having a meeting tomorrow at JFK at 7 o'clock, question and answer. The architects will be there. Randy Daigle will be there to help answer some questions about what went on with Enfield High that we're hoping can maybe replicate here. After that, the architect will take people on a tour of JFK so you can see it through that point of view of people on social media said they wanted a specialist to bring them, not just walk around themselves. So we got that taken care of. The architect will be at the Meet the Candidates. And afterwards, after the Meet the Candidates, they're also willing to give a tour again. Am I at 3 minutes? I've been timed. Oh, no. So we're really hoping that people come out and see what JFK is looking at like now and what needs to be done. The Fermi debate is over. People, they just need to move on. I'm hoping that each of you, when you talk later, will talk about this and give your support to this. It's just really needed for these middle school kids. I have one in 8th, one in 5th who's going in next year, and then once she finishes and goes to high school, I've got another one going in. I'm gonna be at that school till 2026. It needs to be changed, please. So that's all I have to say. And now with the manufacturing thing at Nuntuck, it would be really great to have a great tech ed wing, which is part of it, to move those kids from JFK to Enfield High to college. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Any other audiences? Sensing none. Ms. LeBlanc.
Oh, I'm first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, just a couple things. I'll start with Trish since she just finished up. I am in support of the referendum. I'm in support of it for a number of different reasons. One of my biggest catalysts to being in support of it was talking to the teachers and the administrators at JFK and how passionately they felt about being able to stay in that building versus Fermi. I know people are skeptical and think that that's just what they told a board member because that's what a board member wanted to hear. But if we all remember, I was not in support of letting Fermi go to begin with. I was not in support of the process. So I felt like I had heartfelt conversations with these teachers. I would say that at the time, the specials type teachers like in music and PE were a little bit more skeptical about staying at JFK, but more due to space issues rather than anything else. But when we met as a pre-ref and to Band-Aid JFK was a cost of over $20 million, and to actually renovate JFK with a reimbursement from the state, it made the most sense. And you were giving all the teachers all the space they need, whether they were teaching PE, art, and classroom space. Personally, I have a student at JFK, and when I've gone to the parent-teacher conferences, the buildings need help. With all that being said, I'm not willing to have the future of the referendum I would like to see the referendum pass because I'm not willing to make the kids pay for what could have, should have been done in the past. I can't change the past. I can't change how the town was run, what was done with maintenance. The one thing I can change and be a part of is changing what's going to happen for the future. And that, for me, is personally supporting the referendum. I worked with Chris and Trish and Joe on the pre-ref committee. Walter was always there. Tom was there. It wasn't an easy committee to be on. At times, the meetings were long, but we did it, and I think we came up with a unified thought on the school. And so that's where I stand on the referendum. I want to say I was at a event last night. The Enfield Eagle football team did a trick or trunk event at Fermi, and the football players showed up. I forget the number of football players, and they decorated their trunks. And the flag football team and the Ramblers came, and they trick or treated through the trunks of the football players. And I just love seeing that. I love seeing the football players with the little kids because they're hysterical. And some of the cars were a little scary, I would have to say, but they did a good job. And today on Facebook, there were so many parents out there thanking the Enfield High football team for doing that and organizing that. It was a great event, and the kids had fun, and we had the best weather last night for it because it was nice and warm. Yeah, we really did. So I was there last night. The other thing is, through the chair to the superintendent, I was looking for an update to see how the status of what was going on at the K through 2 schools now that Hale closed, and just looking to see how everything's going.
Overall, I know Mr. Long is going to pass out the most up-to-date enrollment numbers. I know I'd gotten some questions from board members with regards to the enrollment. There's actually 2 documents. There's one that'll look familiar, which is the official October 1 enrollment report that you typically would get. With the new student information system, you'll notice that the dates on these, have been revising them for the first 20 days of the month, but these are the most up-to-date figures that we have. The other document that Mr. Longi is passing out to you now is a comparison, and the numbers on the left may look a bit familiar. The last time the board had discussed class sizes, particularly with the reorganization of the elementary schools, we had given the board numbers based off of the figures on the left. And you notice that was dated back in May of last year. There were some questions about class sizes and concerns with Nathan Hale consolidating into the other 3 primary schools, what the class size numbers would look like. The column on your right is what's actually official as of October 1. And as you can see, we're either a little bit lower or right on target to what we had predicted back in May. There's a few that are obviously a little bit different. One that sticks out a little bit, but I think as board members you'll remember, one of the concerns we had with one school in particular was Henry Barnard, with not just the size of the kids that were transitioning over there, but also moving some other programs there. So we were cognizant about trying to make sure we try to keep all of our class size numbers down. And we're doing a little bit better there in kindergarten than we had anticipated, which I don't necessarily see as a negative thing. But if you could see where the numbers are and the ratios for all of the kids, and a large majority of them are lower than what we had anticipated as far as class size figures go back in May when we had last briefed the board. Some of the overall enrollment numbers at this level are a little bit lower than we had originally projected back in May. But overall, as a district, we're down about 50 students. But before you get cautioned on that, I will tell you that we are actually up 40 students at Enfield High School. So for those who've been around long enough, you know what that means. That means that we're actually getting our kids back. So if you look at the preliminary numbers that we had received from Dr. Prouda about enrollment and our enrollment projections, we're right in line with what he had predicted. What he wasn't aware of were any changes in the configurations of magnet schools. So that's why we're starting to see some of the shifting from the elementary population and seeing some numbers exceeding it, particularly at the high school. But I've gotten numerous requests from board members and even from some staff members wondering what our actual class sizes panned out to be, so you have those in front of you. And I apologize. I know you had another question, so
No, that's okay.
I want to make sure I got that one.
Because you know that I was really concerned about the additional amount of kids that ended up going to Hazardville Memorial. How is that being dealt with at Hazardville right now?
I would say Hazardville is in line with the other 2 corresponding primary schools. Obviously, it's a larger school than what was anticipated, but what some people often forget was 2 years ago when we had our integrated preschool there were actually physically more kids in the building than there currently are now. So as far as the overall size of the building, though it's larger than previous year, but last year was the first year those kids were transitioned over to Stowe. So if you look back on a 2-year scale, there's actually more kids that were there 2 years ago than there are currently there
Right.
now.
I just want to make sure there's enough support staff there.
There are,
to help.
and it doesn't go
manage
without
the day.
challenges. I mean, as you all can remember back to the budget process, we instituted our behavioral analysts at the elementary schools. We're seeing kids coming in at an earlier age with significant behavior issues that we've always seen, but it seems to be a higher volume, and that's not unique to Enfield. That's unique to the state of Connecticut. That's unique nationally. I talk to colleagues on a weekly basis who are struggling with that. One of the things my colleagues are jealous of is that we were proactive, and in instituting the behavioral analysts as we did this year, we're taking an aggressive first step to try to combat some of those things that we're seeing with our youngsters. As you know, it's also a new program. We're starting to see some of the benefits, but we're really at the point of getting baseline data for those 6 analysts, analysts for lack of a better term, in the buildings. All of our staff has either been or in the process of being PBIS trained. So we're really at the beginning phases of us trying to encapsulate data on it. But the overall tenor in some of the buildings are very grateful for the support. Doesn't mean that we still don't have some behavioral issues in our elementary schools, but we've had those in previous years. We're going to continue to have them. It's incumbent upon us to try to be proactive to give the supports that the students need, and we're fortunate that the board has supported
Great.
that through the past.
And you should know that I'm always going to ask you about Power School.
You should, and I'm aware. The latest update I got, as far as I know, the high school is all up and running. For those of you who may not be aware, there was a standards-based curriculum night, a standards-based report card. I'm going to confuse this when I say it. Michelle's going to kill me. Standard-based report card informational session last evening. And one of the things that was a component of that was the Power School aspect. One of the challenges for that, for anyone who has a student that has previously been in an intermediate school, and you may have had access on Home Access Center to see, there's not as much information at the elementary level as there is at the high school and at the middle school level. One of the challenges that we'll have, and I can only speak from personal experience, is when you go to standards-based report cards, the traditional grades that your students would get are no longer comparable. So if your student was always at first marking period at a 3 under the old system, now the way under a standards basis, it now shifts that paradigm to where they should be at the end of the school year. So speaking from a daughter who was an overachiever, and the first time she saw a 2 on her report card as opposed to the 4 she typically received, we had to explain to her it's a different way of grading. So that was all incorporated as part of the evening last night. I know they're working diligently in rolling out the middle school. I don't want to give you a definitive date on when all that's up and running, but I know they're pretty close, if not close already. So you may have some middle school parents who have access to
Yes.
it already.
Okay.
I know they were still working some kinks out, so I'm hesitant to say everything is 100%. But the high school I know is done.
Okay, yes. I can say I don't like the grades I'm seeing on Power School, so we've had a little bit of
That sounds like an
loss
internal
of car
family matter, Mr. Blank.
Loss of car keys, no going out on school nights, so it's been great. And I just want to make a comment. The Magic Carpet Bus, they are going to Henry Barnard now, right?
I believe there's a stop at Henry Barnard.
Okay.
But I have to double check.
Okay. I just want to make sure that there's not an issue with the bus line or because we have additional buses going to the K through 2s now. Is there a possibility that are they pulling into Henry Barnard? Are they?
To be honest, I'm not 100% certain.
I've seen them going by there at lunchtime, and they just go right by. I've
Okay.
never seen them pull into Henry Barnard, but that's only at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
So
I think that's something we should keep an eye on.
I think they stop, Kathy's correct. I know they stop at CVS. I don't know if they actually stop at Barnard.
They stop at Walgreens.
Walgreens, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can tell you, traditionally they didn't pull in when we were there, but I don't live there anymore, so I don't know what they've been doing since July.
I followed them at like 12:20, and they stop at Walgreens, and they just keep going.
Okay. All right. I pulled a Joyce Hall, I know. Okay, now for the fun stuff. I actually just want to take a few minutes, not a few minutes, a minute, to say goodbye to some of my colleagues here on the board that are not going to be here with us. Lori is moving on to the town council, and I've enjoyed working with you for the last 4 years. 4 years, right? And good luck to you on your venture, and don't forget about us down here. I also want to give a heartfelt goodbye to Stacy and Vinny. There's a lot I can say about them, but they're going to be missed. And Stacy was really a backbone at times when you were really struggling with a decision. And I don't know that people always saw that, but I did. I think we all did. So you're going to be missed. You're not going to be forgotten, either one of you. I remember when I was a parent and we created that Enfield Seeing Red, and Vinny showed up with a red Solo cup to kind of like garner support for us. And that was my first. I've known Vinny through my family a long time, but that's when I really got to know him, and he was an inspiration to be on the board with as well. Because what I can say about Vinny is he does love the town of Enfield. I mean, he's made his lifelong career here and raised his family here. But I just want to say that you guys are going to be missed, and I will keep in touch. And this road isn't easy, so there might be times I have to call you and yell, or you're going to have to tell me not to pull out my hair. But breathe. But any efforts you guys have done in your Board of Ed journey has not been unrecognized by me and will not be forgotten, and that more people than you know appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blank. Mr. Neville.
A few things. In terms of these papers here, I know we're having some difficulty in getting to the October 1 count. I really appreciate it here in the way you laid it out. Are we going to be getting this monthly from here on in?
We'll continue the same process we've always had. So you can.
Okay. How about the class? This is. I really like the class size issue here, and I don't know whether that's a big deal or not. If you can do it, fine. There's one other thing I'd like to see here, because we're always asking the question of how many people we have, how many students we have, and what grades of the CREC schools and stuff like that. Is there a way to add that in here somewhere? Unless I'm missing it. Maybe it's right in front of me, which would not be unusual for me.
I mistakenly only copied the first page. It's a double-sided document. I can get that to you.
Okay. Then it's not me. Okay. If you can take care of that, I appreciate it. Parent-teacher conferences. I haven't gotten many calls from people, but I've gotten a number of calls about the high school conferences, saying that they were not, once they were full, they were full. And a lot of people, according to these, I haven't verified it with the administration like that, couldn't get in there for the conferences, and the allotted time was very, very brief. I don't remember exactly how much time it was. I guess I'd ask to the chair, to the superintendent, if you could look into that. I know we always had that trouble with JFK, but we always ran several nights and stuff like that. What I was told was there was only 2 nights, and with the number of students that we had there, they really didn't feel they had the opportunity, and they wanted to do it. And they knew it would be short, the time just to get that many students in. So if you guys could look into it, maybe report back to the chair and let us know what's going on. I don't get that many complaints. I got a number of complaints about that. So maybe it's just kind of opening problems, but if you guys could look into it. To take care of the census, youth vote. I think that's one of the nicest things we do. It's amazing how right the kids are when they do it. They're really pretty close to when they do it. I don't know that they're copying their parents or what, but they really do a good job. And I've heard a lot of kids speak positively of it. And just voting in general. And I know we're not in here talking about who to vote for or whatever, but one of the most cherished rights we have is the right to vote. And I think I speak for everybody here. We need you to go out. Whether you vote for us or not, that's up to you. That's your choice. And that's a right that's guaranteed you. But we need you to come out, and particularly in an election like this, where we don't have, it's not a national election, it's not a presidential election, and that's where you see the highest vote turnouts. But every election is important, and I just in general, please come out. Actively pursue that right that you have, because in some countries they lose it. And I think we have to understand how important that right to vote is, and by acting on it. I think we're also role models to our kids when we do that. So I would throw that out there. In terms of the referendum, I'm with Tina. I mean, I sat on that committee and attended just about every meeting, and I wasn't sure exactly how it would work out because there had been so much controversy. That committee, to a person, although some of them had different views when they walked in the door, really did a great job and really did an enthusiastic job to get the best they could do for the kids. And it wasn't about them or their feelings. It was about, we have one job to do. We all recognize the issue with facilities. Facilities is a big problem in town. We need to address it in a more comprehensive way. But we have an option right now, and I'm a practical guy. I don't like paying more money than I have to for things. So I try to put my emotions aside and put this out there. I think it's an opportunity, particularly now that this budget got taken care of, or it seems to be taken care of. I would just like to, just throw my vote out there. I'd also compliment Trish. She's done a great job. She's done it alone, basically, and she's been able to elicit help from all kinds of folks to get signs out and stuff like that. She's just doing it. She's a volunteer. I commend her for stepping up and doing it, and she deserves kudos for doing that. In terms of the behavioral specialist, I was kind of confronted by a couple of folks that were not happy with that, but they were also saying that they really didn't start the year, running with the kids. They weren't working with the kids. Maybe they were getting data or whatever. I don't know what the issue with that is, but they had some strong concerns. And certainly, I explained to them the need. It's been around for years, and I think it's got increasingly difficult. That's why I think we were unanimous in pushing for that. That was not something we would leave out of this budget that we had here. And I'd like to get some kind of an update down the road when you think it's ready to let us know how many kids we're working with, and I assume you're going to come up with some assessment as to what kind of a success we're having. Even if it's in an anecdotal way, I'd like to see it sometime down the road, just because I think it's something we want to keep, and it's maybe something, unfortunately, that we may have to expand. And so I'd just like to see some kind of an update on that at some point. Years ago, not too many years ago, I went to that PBIS training, and I was very, very impressed with it, and we were trying to get a grant to get it here at one time, and it just didn't pay out. But I think that approach is a good one, so I'm looking for some good things to happen there. Again, I thank Mrs. Fisher for coming out here. I think what she does is wonderful, and I think we've given her all kinds of kudos, but whatever we can do as a board to help them, I would say that we should do that. In terms of the Magic Carpet Bus, and Tina and I had chatted about this before, I'm looking at it through a selfish lens when I was principal. We never had transportation in this town, and it kept people from coming to the schools. We kept saying, you need to come in. We need to have you come to meetings, PPTs, and so on. And we had no way to get them there if they only had a one-car family was being used to go to work or whatever. I like the idea of the bus, and whatever we can do to streamline that and make it possible so that people can take advantage of what we all want, which is to have them work with the schools. I'd like to see us do it. Obviously, it has to be safe, and that's what the thing that Tina and I were talking about. But whatever we can do to get that to happen, I think is a good thing. And on a final note, I think a bunch of us have been here for 6 years, right? And Stacy was here before me, and and then took a year off, or 2 years off, and then came back again. And Vinny was here, and Vinny was part of the fabric of the school system because he was in all these classrooms doing the fire safety stuff, which I never really understood why we lost that, Vinny, which, not to the extent that it used to be. It's really been, and I had a discussion with one of the lieutenants here about why we don't do that again. But, and Vinny and Stacy have both offered a lot here. We've had our discussions, we've had our heated arguments, but I think we all respect each other, and they're good people. I'd be sorry to see them go. I haven't known Vinny as long as I've known Stacy. I think since birth, Stacy, right? She's lived down the street from me. But we're going to miss you. And the new folks here, you guys leaving the nest here and making some other changes here. So I wish you well. And Tom, I think one of the things that's happened here over the last several years is that I think we've put aside our labels of Democrat and Republican, and I think for the most part, I think we've been able to work without a huge controversy on a lot of things. We haven't done everything right, but we've done a lot of right things, and I think we should take credit for that, and I appreciate what you've had to do to do that. So thank you. We wish you all well. Have I missed anybody?
No, I did, so I just want to say.
Okay.
No, you didn't.
Okay,
I did.
all right. But
But
thank you all very
thank you
much.
to
I
Tom,
wish
yeah.
you well.
I just want to say thank you to Tom because although we didn't always agree, you always listened. And I appreciate that more than you know because I always felt heard, even if we didn't agree. So, thank you.
That's it.
Ms. Thurston.
It's your turn.
They don't have any.
I know, the night we need them.
You want to come back? Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to Stacy. Mr. Grady.
Okay.
Hey, Ben.
Since it's my last board meeting, I don't want no time limits. I want no music saying you're done. Let me air it out. Nah.
The superintendent wants you to come back to the other meeting, the 14th.
Okay, well, you have to bring it to the firehouse because I'm working at night. No, well, it's my last board meeting. I would like to take a few minutes and thank some people who have supported me these last 10 years. My wife Nancy for the countless meetings, missed meals, family gatherings, and even your birthday one year. My children, Ashley, Jessica, and Laura, for their support. I also like to thank the people who voted for me these last 10 years and made it possible for me to serve the town of Enfield on the board of the Enfield Public Schools. Please bear with me. The school system cannot run without some amazing people. I have worked with over these years. Dr. Gallagher, Tony Torrey, many talks with him. Dr. Schumann, and even though he is a Yankee fan, Chris Drezik, who took right over for Mr. Torrey. I'm happy to see Mr. Longley move up to where he is today. Just a great example of what the Enfield Public Schools have. I cannot miss thanking Kathy Zalke and Judy Sullivan for the countless times I have called up for asking questions. Bob Fenton, Maureen Sample, Mr. Duffy, and just a few great principals we have had. From the secretaries, school nurses, guidance counselors, and custodians, all the workings of making a school functional. Thank you, Judy Epries DeRosa, for getting me to run in the first place. Joyce Hall, someone I looked up to with her knowledge of the schools. Peter Janitis, who made meetings interesting, and his passion for VOEG, something that we shared. To board members I have worked with over these terms. Tom, we've had some discussions. Peter Janitis, Chuck Johnson, Greg Stokes, Stacy, Tina, Tim, Lori. I'll miss you guys. Thank you. And I wish Rich and Charlotte good luck. Even the short term that we've been together, I see your passion for the board, and I really do hope you do well. Well, I will close out with, oh, I'm sorry, forgot something. I also would like to thank the teachers who at times get a bum rap. The countless hours, their own money they use to get things for their students. Thank you. Now I can go back. What I would like to close out with is to my fellow board members and who will be elected in November, a couple of things. I would like to leave you with this. Forget the parties. Who cares if you're a Republican or a Democrat? Put that aside. Follow your gut, your passion, and do what's best for the Enfield Public Schools, the town of Enfield, and the students. Remember, they need the tools to go on to their future and make their mark. Go into the schools and see what really goes on, not just some social gathering, but a normal day. I think that's half the problem is people who make decisions affecting the schools don't understand what really is needed, day-to-day problems. But they really don't see how the educators are always up to the challenge every day. Thank you for allowing me to ramble, and thank you.
You can't even read your own
Ah, shut up. And thank you for the opportunity for serving the Enfield Public Schools. That's it. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Grady. Ms. Thurston.
With this being my last official board meeting, I want to say thank you for letting me serve the past 6 years, 2 years, hiatus, and then I came back for 4 more. I've had quite the experience at times, wanting to scream and, as Tina said, pull my hair out. But most of times, I felt very lucky and blessed to be part of such a wonderful school system. I may not have spoken up as much as others, but I always listened, and I always did what I felt was best for the students, whether I was by myself or with other people. The new board, I wish you much success. But just remember, as you walk through the halls of our schools and you see the smiles on the faces of the students and you watch them as they are achieving their goals, remember those are the main reasons to become a board member. So I will miss you all. I can't do the individuals because my makeup will run. You know how I'll feel about that.
God, no.
But I've gained some awesome friends, people that have become more like family to me. Tom and Vinny, you guys have been there since day one, and the first 2 years, I thought Vinny was gonna shoot me because I kept picking things off of him because they would drive me nuts. I did better the past 4 years. But it's definitely been an experience, not one that I was ready to let go of, and not one that I would trade for anything. So I will miss you guys, and thank you for everything.
Good job.
Thank you, Ms. Thurston. Mr. Rainier.
I'd like to thank Tina for asking the questions about the student ratios. It was on my list. Also on my list was PBIS, so Tim and Tina, thank you. Both of those are crossed off my list. I just want to give a shout out, band athletics and academics for just a strong performance so far this year, coming out with titles, coming out with wins. It just gives Enfield such a bright light, and it's great to see. I want to thank Kelly and Alex's Army. I'm so glad and proud to be wearing this T-shirt for what it stands for. You know, MAD started because of a tragic incident, and it became a staple. And I think this really has the bearings of having that staple on society, just with the passion that Kelly and the town brings to it. So I'd like to thank her as well. I did want to address, I was in a Holyoke meeting with the school district, and obviously Holyoke is more affluent to our family and friends over in Puerto Rico, as we are here in Enfield. But they had an influx of about 47 individuals from Puerto Rico one day last week, with 12 enrollments into their school system. Obviously, I don't see that happening here in Enfield, but I do see that, you know, we probably will get 1 or 2 of our friends and families here in the school system. So I'm just hoping that we can work closely with the Department of Social Services and make any streamlining we can for those students that are coming here, just because of the loss and devastation they've had, just to make it a smooth transition if possible. I had received an email, I know a bunch of us did, and I forwarded it to you too as well, so that happened at dinner time tonight, so probably didn't get that yet. And I just wanted to say to Stacy, Vinny, Lori, and Tom, you know, it's been a pleasure serving with you all on the board. When I used to watch this on the magical ETV and see all of you up here in the good times and the not so good times and the wow, I need some popcorn times. The passion that you guys had for, you know, the kids here in town. And I wanted to, you know, come onto a board that had that passion And, I was fortunate enough to do that and see that, not just here, but in committees and other meetings as well. So I thank all of you for what you've done. You're definitely a bright, shining star for this town and a great thing for the future candidates to look up to. So thank you all. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ringer. Ms. Riley.
Well, first I wanted to say congratulations to the student athletes that are going to be signing letters of intent. That's no small feat. I myself was a Lady Blue Devil in my college years, and I know that the dedication and perseverance that it takes to do that is not easy. So I wish all of the student athletes best of luck. Enjoy your time playing, but don't ever lose sight of your educational goals, because that's the reason why you're going to college, hopefully. And I'm sure that you're going to do awesome if you just keep that all in perspective. I did have 2 questions, if it was okay to ask Mr. Drezek.
Through the chairman to Mr. Drezek. Yes, go ahead.
For the standard-based report card meeting that we had last night, I myself was unable to attend, and I'm sure other parents were also unable to attend. So I was wondering if there's going to be another opportunity for the parents to get some more information on this, if you're going to have something online or if you're going to send something out with the report cards so that they can read it.
Yes, the curriculum office is working on getting communication out to families through. And it was a
Great. And then the other question I had was, have you evaluated the drop-off and pickup routines at the K through 2 schools to assess any shortfalls or better practices that we might have in place?
during the first month of school. I can't call it an evaluation. It's more of making sure everything goes okay at the time. And then it's really an adjustment on the fly. And a lot of times we'll engage the services of the police department as well for some of that, as well as our own security staff. Mr. Harrison is very visible at pickup and drop off at all of the schools. And starting as the first layer of recommendation at the school level, if there's something we can change. And if we need the traffic division from the PD to come in, they do that. I don't know where there's real wood, so I don't want to knock on anything yet.
Yeah.
But any of the confusion that may have happened during the first few days, I know they've addressed some of the issues at some of the buildings. Any major structural changes is just something that has to go through a process.
Okay. All right.
And those of you can remember the Hazardville Memorial shift from 10 years ago where we had to actually change the front door. So there is a process that goes along with it.
The only reason why I asked is because I know that at, not a drop-off, but at pickup, there are still a number of cars parking on the lawn. So I think that that may become an issue when the snow falls. So I don't know if there's a better way to work it. I'm sure there might not be, but I just wanted to bring it up. That's all.
A lot of times it's just staff members going out and reminding people they can't park there.
Yeah. Yep. And then I wanted to thank everybody on the board. I know I'm a newbie and I've only been here for a very short time, but I want to thank everybody for taking me under your wing and making me feel as if I've been here forever, even though it was a short time. You guys... Okay, I'll bring on the next special meeting then. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Ms. Ungeyer.
First off, I wanted to thank Sarah and Matt for giving us those monthly or bi-monthly reports on the high school and what's going on, and congratulate the band on their award. That's fantastic. So keep playing the trumpet. That's great. I mentioned this before, but I didn't really have the dollar amount, but the class of 1977 had their reunion at Grassmere not that long ago, and as one of their 50-50 raffles, they wanted to give half the money raised to Rachel's Challenge. And so in doing that, it ended up, the man that won, his name is Scott Leonard, and he gave his winnings back to Rachel's Challenge. And so what they raised was $515. So kudos to the class of 1977. It was really nice of them to do that. I attended the Craig Council meeting this week, so that was interesting, saying goodbye to all of them. I don't know who's going to take my place, but it's a very interesting group of people. It's people from Board of Eds from across the state, and you get to network with those people, and you kind of can get a good sense of how things are going throughout the state, and some of us are facing the exact same challenges. This is my last Board of Ed meeting. I wanted to thank everybody. I've had a great run here, and we've had some challenges and some great successes, and I've just really enjoyed working with all of you. I'm going to really miss all of you. The board members, the administration, the teachers, the students, I've come in contact with all of them. I've gotten to know a lot of really good people here. I wanted to thank the town of Enfield for this opportunity to even be here, because if it wasn't for the voters, I wouldn't be here. I want to thank my husband for all his patience and his concern as well for this town, and that it's been a real privilege to serve on this board and to be able to give back. So I am running for town council, so I'm hoping to still be around if I get elected, so I'll just be changing hats, and so I'm hoping I still get to see all of you. With the superintendent's permission, I was able to donate a copy of my book. Some of you know, some of you don't, but I wrote and illustrated a children's book, and I went around to all the elementary schools and I signed it and donated a copy to every school, and got to meet the librarian and speak with them. So that was really a privilege to do that. I think you're all great and wonderful, and I've learned so much. And even when I first started and asked the silly questions, you still answered them. And I especially want to thank Kathy. I think she is just a treasure. She's a wealth of knowledge. I don't want to add more phone calls to your day, but the one thing that came to me is that you're a rare gem whose sparkle brightens the world. Thank you very much. I do. So thank you all very, very much. You've all touched my heart. I'm really going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ungar. Mr. Cruzel.
Kudos again on the high school. And I even heard on the radio this morning on 1080 they did the poll for the girls soccer, and Enfield's ranked number 5 for girls soccer. So it was on the radio this morning. So kudos to them. Great job. Jack-o'-lantern Festival was great turnout, like always, and it was a lot of pumpkins. And where do I begin? Mr. Grady, thank you for helping me these last 2 years with all your wealth and knowledge, and what you will be missed on this board. Well, whatever it is, and it helped. So, Stacy, same here. You're a rock to this board, and you will be missed. Lori, you are taking a demotion by going to council, because we're up here and council's down here. So just let you know, we're still above you. Okay? And Mr. Chairman, you will be missed as well. And the wealth of your knowledge and all your contacts, and anytime we had a question, you had an answer within minutes, and it's going to be missed very much. So
thank you.
That's all I have to say.
This is the last regular Board of Education meeting where I'll be sitting in as chairman. And before I mentioned that the holiday coming up is Thanksgiving, and I know there's 15 people in town who will have something to celebrate because this is my last regular meeting as chairman. They've been waiting to hear that for a very long time. So, in 18 days, we'll be at the 2nd anniversary of my personal decision not to seek re-election to the Board of Education. Shortly after the last election cycle, as many of my colleagues will tell you, I decided that it was time for me to move on. There was a job that we set out to do 8 years ago, and that job is complete. Where we are today from where we were 8 years ago, we have a lot to be proud of. There's nothing but positives. And we did it together. And anyone who tries to take that away, they're not good people. Mr. Grady and I started out as arguing fiends across the table, him on one side and me on the other, and Mr. Grady and I are good friends now. Stacy. Stacy brought a sense to the board in the few times that she talked, but it brought us around to where we were always supposed to be thinking about. Stacy made it a pleasure to be up here. I used to call her Sunshine, still do. She's become a very good friend too. Mr. Neville. Mr. Neville, I met Mr. Neville when we were his boss's boss. He was over in the middle school, and he stepped up to the plate when we first came out to the reorganization plan, and he really worked hard on it. I've served with Mr. Neville now for 6 years? 4 years? 6 years. 6 years I've been with you, Tim, and you've always had your heart in the right place. I always said that God makes things happen for a purpose. We got Tina. See, Tina and Mr. Ludwig were both insurance experts. And they saved us both. They both saved us, this town, a ton of money. And I remember when I was first made chairman, and remember, that's a position I didn't want. I didn't want to be chairman of the board. She was the finance person. The first time in, I think, living history that I can remember where a Democrat under a Republican administration occupied a chairmanship. Same thing with Mr. Neville. Same thing with Mr. Grady. Weren't you chairman under me too? Vice chairman. So it all worked. She brought talent when we needed it. Mr. Rainier, Ms. Charlotte, you're new, but it's like you've been here for forever. And you guys are caught up really, really quick. And I can personally attest that your heart's in it. I know your heart's in it. You got appointed to a tough spot where you're adopting somebody else's term, but trust me, in many ways, you far surpassed the people that you replaced. Ms. Ungeyer, on our side of the ticket, you were the heart of the board. You always had an understanding of the softer side of what we're supposed to be doing, and you're a tough fighter for things that you believed in. And I think you're going to do very, very well moving up to the council, because it's always been my personal opinion that anybody running for council should do at least one term on the board, because you really don't understand it till you do. Mr. Cruzel, you've been a very good friend. You've been a very reliable supporter. You undersell the level of knowledge that you have, and I think the board will do very well with you moving forward. It's funny, some of the names that came out, you know, in the Navy, they say your best commands are always your first commands and your last one. In my first one, Mr. Grady was there. Chuck Johnson was there. There's two people, a Republican and a Democrat, that helped teach me how to be a good board member. Chuck Johnson and Judy Aparici DeRose. Because after the election, after Vinny and I worked out our issues, we kind of took our hats off and just buckled down and started to work. Joyce Hall. I miss Joyce. I missed her level of knowledge. Joyce is the one that taught me, you need to know the rules. Donna Suzak. Donna was another one right there, helped us design this great tool system that we have. She's on the council now. I think she's going to do a wonderful job. She understands how the things work. She's another tough fighter. She gets undersold on the toughness. But she's really good people, and she really cares about Enfield. You know, all of my friends, all of my supporters, and everybody who's ever voted for me, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to my colleagues for having the faith in me to have me the privilege of serving the town on the Board of Ed. I hate that this is my last meeting, but at the same time, I'm glad this is my last meeting, because my wife and kids get to have me back again. My boys are 10 and 11, and they're getting old enough where I need to be there for them. I wish more people would follow this example, by the way, and after a certain time, just let other people deal with it. They'll handle it. I want to thank them for allowing me to be here, because they have. I'm not going to miss going to Hartford. I'm not going to miss meeting other Board of Ed chairmen. Trust me, I'm not. Not going to miss dealing with the budget. I'm not. But the things that I am going to miss, I'm going to miss being up here with my friends. And I'm going to miss doing graduation. And I'm going to miss honoring the kids that did well. And I'm going to miss honoring the kids that worked their butts off and did significant improvements. I'm going to miss that stuff. I was never one for a photo op, as you guys know. I tried to blow that stuff off. But I always tried to treat you guys all as the same team. And then, you know, some people were offended when I called you my team. I always considered myself part of a team, and just, it was my team. Just like it was Vinny's team, and Stacy's team, and Tim's team, and Tina's team, and all these, Trick's, and everybody's. It was never a derogatory sense or a sense of possession. It was just, I was proud of you guys, proud to be part of it. On the unhappy side, things that I am concerned about is where you're moving forward in the future. We just got some good news from our friends in the legislature, and they've worked real hard to come up with a consensus budget that gets you 2 years. My hope is that the structural deficiencies at the state side of the fence actually get repaired, because my fear, because we've seen this before, is that unless these things start getting fixed, you might find yourselves in the same shoes that we were in now if the revenue should drop. 2 years ago, the budget was supposedly balanced because they had projections of revenues, and if those revenues drop, you're going to be in shortfall, and if you're in shortfall, you're only an election away from going back to the way it used to be. $3.4 billion is a hard nut to crack, and it's a hard one to make up for. And if that doesn't shrink and it doesn't get better, and certain folks don't honestly come to the table and say we need to change the way we do business, you're going to be back in square one. And I know how tough that is. Should that happen, don't be afraid to make a decision. Should that happen, try your best to explain it, but don't take 6 months. Should that happen, be honest with everybody. Try to come to a consensus, but vote your heart. But use your head. I would like to see everything turn out well. My prayers have always been that we would always have more than enough. My prayers have always been that as long as we stayed together and we worked hard, we could see through things pretty clear. Stay together, know your rules, and don't take too long to make a decision. And for the folks out there, anybody who has ever spoken ill of the school system does not deserve your vote. Because if every other word out of their mouth was how bad it was, their heart's not in the right place. And I'm going to leave it at that. Moving on. Unfinished business. Policy revisions. Approve the 9000 series. Second and final reading.
Did you know at the last board meeting, Mr. Chairman, the board approved the 9000 series for a first reading. There's a second reading on the agenda, which will be the final. A copy's been in everyone's packet. If any questions, Mr. Longy and Mr. Renier are here to answer.
So moved on the motion.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve this as the second reading and final reading. Is there any discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Mrs. Ungary?
Yes.
Mr. Cruzel?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston?
Yes.
Mr. Grady?
For.
Chairman Serrard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
New business. Approve fiscal 2018 Head Start federal grants. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We welcome our Head Start Director, Deb Clement, and the Education Disabilities Coordinator, Melissa Lavasser. I always mispronounce her name, so I apologize. Tonight's meeting, they'll give the board a brief update about the Head Start program.
Sit here all this time.
I just have to say, you guys are a hard act to follow.
So I'm Deb Clement, the director of Head Start. This is Melissa Lavasser, our ed manager. I'll just give you a very short update. And we're here tonight to vote on our 2 federal grants, which includes our school readiness goals and our program goals. Also our personnel policies, which includes our impasse procedure and our community assessment. And I just wanted to point out that I've posted our annual report on our website, and I just wanted to give a couple of highlights from that. It does go over our wonderful parent engagement that we had last year, and it talks about the progress that our students made. The following are percentages of the students that met or exceeded the state expectations. Mathematics, 87%. Cognitive, 93%, literacy, 93%, language, 90%, social emotional, 91%, and physical, 98%. We do try to give you where they start out and then where they end. We just finished we're in the process of finishing up our fall assessment, so next time we speak to you, we can let you know where they start out and where they go. It's really quite impressive. And I'd like Melissa to give an update of what we're working on now.
Hi. Right now for family engagement, last night and tonight there was a family night that was attended by about 57 of our 104 families. So we had to divide it up between the 2 nights because it gets too full in there. So also right now the teachers are doing home visits. We do home visits for each child, and they're developing individual goals with the parents based on the assessment that we do, that you see the numbers from the beginning and then the end. So the teachers are developing those goals. I also wanted to tell you that we also have a collaborative with Asnuntuck in their early childhood department and Enfield High School through their child development class. Their students just finished, or tomorrow or Thursday finish up coming and spending time in our program before they have their little preschool classroom for 6 to 8 weeks. So they get about 6 sessions with our children, and then they start there. So it's been a really great collaborative with both Enfield High and Asnuntuck.
All right, I'm willing to answer any questions if you have any.
Ms. LeBlanc?
I actually have a suggestion. Before you come to a board meeting, ask Chris what is on the agenda, or the superintendent, so you don't have to sit through. I feel like every time you guys come, we have a long agenda, and you guys are always at the end.
I know, it's dictated by our grant period, so we don't have a choice. But thank you, I wish we could.
We're going to think of this. I'm going to think of this if I get elected again, when I see you guys on an agenda.
That would be
because
very much
I just feel like
appreciated.
every time, or maybe we can exchange cell numbers and I can text you like leave in 5. So you don't have to- Thank you though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Neville?
In terms of you're always in seeking federal grants, correct? Are your grants at all jeopardized by what's going on now in Washington?
Well, our 2 federal grants that we have, it's on a 5-year grant cycle.
Okay.
And unless we do something pretty horrible, like a safety regulation is ignored or something, we usually get it each year. The only thing that happens is sometimes we're either flat funded, well, that happens a lot, or there could be cuts. We have been waiting to hear. I haven't heard of anything so far that's going to be a big cut, so I think we're going to be okay this year.
Okay, I hope you're right. And I doubt there'll be any safety issue that'll happen in your program, knowing you two
That
so
was
well.
me.
All I would say is just keep up the good work. I'd also suggest, and picking up with Tina's comment, is that when you know you're coming up, call Chris and just ask him if you can bat lead off. Okay, you're like number 1 instead of like wherever you are. You're at the bottom of the list here. So
I'm number 1.
I'm sure he'll reward your patience all these years. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Thurston?
I just wanted to be able to thank you guys publicly. I've been the Head Start liaison for the past couple of years, and I just absolutely adore you guys and your program. And I told Melissa earlier, Debbie, I'm still going to bring books by for the kids.
Thank you.
But I will definitely miss you and you guys, just everything that you do for the kids and for the parents. The parents, that still just completely blows my mind how the parents are so involved and just, it's just, I just love that program. So I'm really going to miss you. And
Yeah, we're
thank
going to miss
for-
you too. We appreciate all of your support and work throughout the years. You've really been very supportive of us, and we appreciate that.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion to approve the Head Start grant?
So, second.
Motion made by Ms. Thurston, seconded by Mr. Cruzel. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Mrs. Ungary?
Yes.
Mr. Cruzel?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston? Yes. Mr. Grady?
4.
Chairman Serard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3, Montessori, St. Martha's.
10:24. Signed. Approve the 2018 schedule for regular meetings, Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As no Connecticut law requires that the Board of Education provides the town clerk with a listing of all regularly scheduled meetings. In your packet is a list of regularly scheduled meetings for the year 2018 that we have to submit to the town clerk's office with your approval.
Do I have a motion to? Motion made by Mr. Neville, seconded by Ms. Ungary, and that's to approve the regular schedule of 2018 meetings. Any discussion?
Has there ever been a thought to have this at Elkhorn instead of in town chambers?
I'm going to let that be handled by the next board. This board always thought it was to keep this on the same tier as the town council, and this is the seat of government for the town, which was the justification for putting it here. But the next board can do whatever the heck they want.
They always can, Mr. Chairman, but I think one of the things is the cameras, all the technology and stuff like that. We never get it. You can never get it over at Alcorn to be happening on the same night. We're here.
It won't be live there.
Pardon me?
It won't be live there.
No, it won't be. And I think, in terms of that word, I hate transparency. I think we need to have that out there because, believe it or not, I've always been surprised at how big an audience we have, and I think that's important for the town. So, anyway, but it can still be brought up. But those are the reasons, really. I think.
All right. Any other discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Mrs. Ungary?
Yes.
Mr. Cruzel?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston? Mr. Grady?
No.
What?
I'm not going to be here. I don't care.
Gerard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11C, policy revisions. Approved as the 0000 series first reading. Should I turn it over to Mr. Rainier?
Certainly can, or just tell the board quickly that the policy committee met to review the 0 series. Mr. Rainier and Mr. Longy are here to answer any questions, but they're proposing this as a first reading.
Mr. Rainier, what do you have to say about it?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Everything that the superintendent just said. No, we took recommendations from CABE, went through them as we did with the 9000 series, added some things in the zeros that were mandated by law, and other things that just replaced some of the current bylaws that we had into this series.
We never had a 0 series. This is the
a new
way.
addition.
There's new numbering system by CABE, and they added a 0 series. But what it is it's taking ones from where they were supposed to be and putting them in.
Put in zeros. So basically, all the bylaws in Connecticut will run formula to each other.
Any discussion other than that? I'll entertain a motion to approve the first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Thurston, seconded by Mr. Cruzel. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Mrs. Ungary?
Yes.
Mr. Cruzel?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston? Mr. Grady?
4.
Chairman Serard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Board committee reports. Building committee.
Nothing to report. We haven't had a meeting.
Curriculum committee.
We had to cancel the meeting. The next one will be November.
Finance committee.
They didn't have a meeting.
Leadership committee. Nothing. Policy committee.
Last week we met in the freezer of the superintendent's office, and we ended up doing the 100 series.
Well, if you're wondering where the town hall air conditioning is, in the Alcorn.
But we did go over the 100 series. We only did half of them due to time constraints. It's another big series. Next time we meet, depending on who's on that committee, continue that series.
Very good. Any other committee reports? Sensing none, moving on. Approval of the minutes, regular minutes, October 10th.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Thurston, seconded by Mr. Cruzell. Any discussion, changes? Sensing none, show of hands. Abstention?
I abstain. I wasn't.
All right, let's do this again. Approval of the minutes. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Approval of accounts and payroll, we have none.
None.
Correspondence and communications.
Nothing.
Audiences. Executive sessions.
Mr. Chairman, for the last time, motion to adjourn.
Second.
No. No.
Motion to adjourn made by Mr. Grady, seconded by Ms. Thurston.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Show of hands. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.